The champagne flute trembled in Madison's manicured hand as she stood at the head table, her emerald bridesmaid dress catching the light from the chandeliers. I should have known something was off when she insisted on making a toast right after the best man. Madison loved attention. But this felt different. Intentional. Cold. "I have an announcement," Madison said, loud enough to quiet the 200 guests filling the reception hall. The string quartet fell silent. Forks paused midair. Even my 80-year-old grandmother stopped whispering about the dry salmon. I sat in my ivory silk wedding dress, Daniel's hand warm in mine, watching Madison with the kind of caution that comes from growing up with someone who turns every moment into a competition. Madison was stunning, sharp-featured, and intense. She'd always been bitter I was getting married first, that I found Daniel while she was still bouncing through relationships. "As most of you know," she said, smiling wide, "Olivia and I have shared everything. Clothes, secrets, even crushes in high school." Nervous laughter rippled through the room. My mother looked tense at the family table, already red-cheeked from wine and worry. "So it's only fair," Madison continued, raising her glass, "that I share this moment too." She paused for dramatic effect. "I'm pregnant." The room clapped, confused but supportive. Aunt Helen started crying. She always cried at baby news, but I didn't look away from Madison, because her smile had changed. "By the groom," she added. Silence. Real, painful silence. So quiet I could hear the ice sculptures melting. Then chaos. Gasps, shouts, chairs scraping. My mother's wine glass shattered on the floor. Uncle Tommy actually clapped before his wife hushed him. But I stayed still. Daniel still held my hand, then slowly turned to me and laughed. "Finally," he said, loud enough for all to hear. "The truth comes out." Madison froze. This wasn't the meltdown she expected. She wanted tears, drama, a ruined wedding. Instead, I picked up the remote I'd placed near my seat earlier and connected it to the venue's AV system, the one meant for our slideshow. "You know what, Madison?" I said, standing slowly. "You're right. The truth does deserve the spotlight." I pressed play. The ballroom screens flickered, switching from smiling couple photos to a new video. The timestamp read 6 months ago. The location, Madison's apartment. Her voice played loud through the speakers. "I'm not really pregnant," she said, laughing on a phone call. "But Olivia believes it. She's so gullible." Madison's face turned pale. She tried to rush the equipment, but my cousin Marcus, a former football player, stepped in her way. The video kept rolling. "The plan's easy. I'll get close to Daniel, then fake proof. A few texts, maybe some pictures. Public embarrassment. Olivia got engaged first. It's only fair." Another voice, her friend, asked, "What if Daniel says no?" Madison replied, "He won't. Be nice, play helpless, and guys usually go along with it. It'll be enough to make it look real." I clicked to the next clip. Madison at a bar with friends, timestamp 2 weeks later. "Phase 2 is in motion," she told them, laughing. Texting him. "Acting like I need help with random stuff. Olivia's too busy wedding planning to notice." "Aren't you worried about karma?" someone asked. Madison shrugged. "Karma's for people who wait around. I take control." By now, Madison had stopped moving. She stood there, watching her own words echo through the room. I clicked to the next file, a series of text messages between Madison and someone saved as photo guy. Madison, "Need realistic photos of me with my sister's fiancé in compromising positions." Photo guy, $500 for basic package, $1,000 for pregnancy test photos and ultrasound mock-ups. Madison, deal, sending photos now. The screenshots showed Madison had sent innocent pictures from family gatherings, ones where Daniel had been cropped out of group photos, to be doctored into evidence of an affair. "Should we continue?" I asked the silent reception hall. "There's so much more. Like the fake pregnancy test you bought online. The pillow you've been wearing under tight dresses when you knew we'd run into family friends. The acting coach you hired to help you cry on command for tonight." Madison's mouth opened and closed like a fish out of water. But the best was yet to come. I clicked to the final video. This one was different, grainier, clearly from a hidden camera. The timestamp was from last week. Madison sat across from a man I didn't recognize, sliding an envelope across a restaurant table. "Here's half," she said. "You'll get the rest after you do your part at the wedding." Just to be clear, the man said. I'm supposed to pretend to be Daniel, claim the baby's mine, and make a scene. Exactly. Olivia's never met you. In the chaos, no one will notice you're not actually the groom until it's too late. The humiliation will be complete. Lady, this is seriously messed up. You sure you want to destroy your sister's wedding like this? Madison's response chilled even me, and I'd watched this video dozens of times. I don't just want to destroy her wedding. I want to destroy her. Everything she has, everything she is. She thinks she's better than me with her perfect relationship and her stupid happiness. Well, we'll see who's happy after tonight. I paused the video and looked at Daniel, my sweet, faithful Daniel, who'd been wearing a wire for the past 3 months at my request. He stood up beside me, pulling the tiny microphone from his boutonniere. You see, Daniel said, addressing the room but looking at Madison. When Madison first started texting me 6 months ago, I thought it was innocent, but something felt off. The messages got flirtier, more inappropriate. I showed them all to Olivia immediately. I picked up the story. We could have confronted her then, but we knew Madison. She would have denied it, played the victim, turned the family against us. So we decided to let her hang herself. Daniel played along just enough to keep her scheme going while documenting everything. The private investigator was my idea, Daniel added. Figured if she was willing to destroy our wedding, we should know exactly how far she'd go. From the corner of my eye, I saw several uniformed officers enter the reception hall. Perfect timing. I asked them to wait outside until I gave the signal. The really interesting thing, I continued, my voice steady despite the adrenaline coursing through me, is that hiring someone to impersonate another person for fraud is actually a crime. So is conspiracy to commit fraud, identity theft, cyber harassment. Our lawyer, hi Janet. I waved to my attorney at table 12. She says Madison's looking at serious charges. Madison finally found her voice. You can't. This is entrapment. You set me up. No, Janet stood up, every inch the shark lawyer in her elegant pantsuit. Entrapment requires law enforcement to induce someone to commit a crime they wouldn't otherwise commit. You planned this entirely on your own. We just documented it. The officers approached Madison, who looked wildly around the room for support. Our parents sat frozen at their table, my mother's face a masterpiece of horror and disappointment. Dad wouldn't even look at Madison. The daughter he'd always defended, always enabled, had finally gone too far. Mama? Madison's voice cracked. Daddy? You can't let them do this. You tried to destroy your sister's wedding, Mom said quietly, tears streaming down her face. You tried to destroy her marriage, her happiness, her life. For what? Jealousy? Spite? She stole everything from me. Madison screamed, mascara running in black rivers down her cheeks. Everyone always loved her more. She got the grades, the friends, the husband. I earned those things, I interrupted, by being a decent person, by working hard, by treating people with kindness instead of viewing them as props in my personal drama. As the officers led Madison away, she turned back one last time. You'll regret this, Olivia. I'm your sister. No, I said firmly. You're someone who happens to share my DNA. Family doesn't try to destroy family. The reception hall remained silent after the police car pulled away. 200 guests stood awkwardly, unsure whether to leave or stay, whether to applaud or cry. The wedding I'd meticulously planned for 18 months laid in shambles around us. Then my grandmother, bless her ornery soul, raised her champagne glass. Well, that was better than cable TV. Now, can we eat the cake? I paid good money for this outfit, and I'm not leaving without dessert. The tension broke. Nervous laughter filled the room, then genuine laughter. Uncle Tony started a slow clap that built into real applause. The band leader, who'd witnessed the entire spectacle, grabbed his microphone. Ladies and gentlemen, I've played a lot of weddings. But that's a first. What do you say we celebrate the happy couple who just proved that honesty, trust, and a good private investigator are the keys to a lasting marriage? The music started, love and marriage, because our band leader had a sense of humor. Daniel pulled me onto the dance floor, and I let him spin me, my dress flaring out like a flower blooming after a storm. No regrets? He asked softly, for my ears only. None, I said, meaning it. She made her choice 6 months ago. We just gave her enough rope. Your sister's probably going to need therapy, and a lawyer. My parents will hire both, I'm sure. They always clean up her messes. But not this time. This time there are consequences. As we danced, guests began to join us on the floor. The caterers, God bless them, continued serving dinner as if attempted wedding sabotage was just another dietary restriction to work around. The photographer kept snapping pictures, probably already calculating how much he could sell the story for. My phone buzzed with texts. That was Ipeki. Cousin Lisa. Your sister's a psycho, but you're a queen. College roommate Jen. I got the whole thing on video. YouTube. Uncle Tommy. By the time we cut the cake, Madison free, thankfully, the wedding had transformed from potential disaster to legendary event. People would talk about this for years. Not the flowers or the food or my dress, but the bride who turned her sister's betrayal into the ultimate victory. You know what the funny thing is? I told Daniel as we shared the first bite of cake. She was never actually pregnant. The private investigator confirmed it. She was going to claim she lost the baby after the wedding, use it for more sympathy and manipulation. Honestly, I'm just impressed you kept this secret for 6 months. You usually can't even keep my Christmas presents a surprise. I laughed, really laughed, for the first time all evening. Turns out revenge is excellent motivation for secret keeping. The rest of the reception passed in a blur of dancing, drinking, and increasingly wild retellings of what had just happened. By the time Daniel and I made our exit through a shower of rose petals, Madison's name had become synonymous with epic fail in our family lexicon. As we settled into the limo, I pulled out my phone one last time. Madison had been released on bail and had posted on social media. Family betrayal cuts deepest. You'll see who the real victim is here. I screenshotted it, forwarding it to Janet with a note. More evidence for the harassment file. Then I turned off my phone, leaned into my husband, and let myself savor the moment. Madison had wanted to destroy my wedding, my marriage, my happiness. Instead, she'd given me the greatest gift of all. The knowledge that I'd married a man who faced temptation and chose loyalty, who helped me turn betrayal into triumph, who danced with me through the chaos and came out laughing. So, Daniel said as we pulled away from the venue, honeymoon tomorrow. Think we'll have any more family drama? Not where we're going, I grinned. I may have forgotten to mention, I changed our destination. We're going to that resort Madison's always dreaming about but could never afford. Posted pictures of our booking confirmation on Instagram an hour ago. Daniel laughed so hard the driver asked if we were okay. Remind me never to get on your bad side, Mrs. Peterson. Deal, Mr. Peterson. Now let's go start our happily ever after. The real one, not the fake one my sister tried to sell. As we drove into the night, I thought about Madison probably rage scrolling through social media in a holding cell. She'd spent 6 months planning my destruction, never realizing she was orchestrating her own downfall. The irony was almost Shakespearean. The schemer undone by her own scheme, the liar exposed by her own words, the sister who claimed I stole everything, losing the only thing that mattered. The family who'd always defended her, no matter what. But that was Madison's story now, not mine. Mine was just beginning, with a man who proved his worth, a family who finally saw the truth, and a wedding story that would become family legend. Sometimes the best revenge isn't revenge at all. It's simply letting toxic people reveal themselves while you stand back and press play.
The diamond bracelet glittered in the store window, mocking me with its extravagance. I could feel Marcus's eyes boring into the side of my head, his excitement palpable. My stomach churned. Isn't it perfect, Belinda? Marcus gushed, pressing his face against the glass like a child eyeing candy. Mom will absolutely love it. I swallowed hard, trying to keep my voice steady. It's beautiful, but Marcus, we can't afford. Nonsense. He waved his hand dismissively. It's Mom's 70th birthday. We have to make it special. I bit my lip, my mind racing through our mounting bills, the leaky roof, and the stack of unpaid credit card statements hidden in my desk drawer. Honey, $3,000 is a lot of money right now. Maybe we could find something more reasonable? Marcus's face darkened, his jovial mood evaporating instantly. Are you saying my mother isn't worth it? That's not what I meant, and you know it, I snapped, my patience wearing thin. I'm saying we have responsibilities, Marcus. Bills to pay, a house to maintain, and family to take care of, he interrupted, his voice rising. Passers-by glanced our way, and I felt my cheeks burn with embarrassment. Mom has always been there for us, The least we can do is show her how much we appreciate her. I wanted to scream, to shake him and make him understand the precarious financial tightrope we were walking. Instead, I took a deep breath and tried a different approach. Marcus, sweetie, I know you want to do something special for your mom, but what if we planned a nice dinner instead? Something intimate, with all her favorite foods? He scoffed, shaking his head. A dinner? That's your big idea? God, Belinda, sometimes I wonder if you have any heart at all. His words stung, and I felt tears pricking at the corners of my eyes. That's not fair, I whispered, my voice trembling. You know what's not fair? Marcus growled, turning to face me fully. Working my ass off every day only to come home to a wife who doesn't support me or my family. I recoiled as if he'd slapped me. How dare you? I've been holding us together for months while you bounce from job to job, making grand promises you can't keep. The moment the words left my mouth, I knew I'd crossed a line. Marcus's face contorted with rage, his fists clenching at his sides. Is that what you think of me? He hissed. That I'm some kind of failure? Marcus, I didn't mean. Save it, he spat, turning on his heel and storming into the jewelry store. My heart raced as I watched him approach the counter, gesturing animatedly at the bracelet in the window. This couldn't be happening. We were already drowning in debt, and here he was, about to add another $3,000 to the pile. I rushed into the store, my palms sweating. Marcus, please, let's talk about this. He ignored me, smiling charmingly at the saleswoman. We'll take it, he announced proudly. The saleswoman beamed, reaching for the bracelet. Excellent choice, sir. Your wife will love it. Oh, it's not for my wife, Marcus corrected her, shooting me a pointed look. It's for my mother, someone who actually appreciates me. I felt like I'd been punched in the gut. Tears threatened to spill over as I watched Marcus hand over our credit card, sealing our financial fate with a flourish of his signature. As we left the store, Marcus clutched the small, elegant bag triumphantly. See? Was that so hard? I couldn't speak, my throat tight with unshed tears and simmering anger. How had we gotten here? When had my loving, supportive husband turned into this selfish stranger? As we approached our car, Marcus's phone buzzed. He glanced at the screen and grinned. It's Mom. She wants us to come over right away. Says she has a surprise for us. I closed my eyes, willing the ground to swallow me whole. What fresh hell awaited us at Edna's house? And how much more could our fragile marriage take before it shattered completely? The memory hit me like a freight train as we pulled into Edna's driveway. Suddenly I was back at Chez Pierre, that overpriced French restaurant, watching helplessly as Marcus ordered another bottle of champagne. To new beginnings, he'd toasted, clinking glasses with his rowdy college friends. I'd smiled tightly, my stomach in knots. We couldn't afford this extravagance, not with Marcus between jobs, again. As the night wore on, the bill grew astronomical. When it finally arrived, Marcus leaned in close, his breath reeking of expensive wine. Honey, I seem to have forgotten my wallet. You've got this, right? My cheeks burned as I fumbled for my credit card, praying it wouldn't be declined. That night had cost us nearly 2 months' rent. Now, staring at Edna's perfectly manicured lawn, I felt that same sickening dread. What surprise could she possibly have in store? Come on, Belinda, Marcus urged, already halfway up the path. Don't keep Mom waiting. I trudged behind him, clutching my purse like a shield. The front door swung open before we could knock, revealing Edna in all her carefully curated glory. My darlings, she cooed, enveloping Marcus in a perfumed embrace. Her eyes narrowed slightly as she turned to me. Belinda, dear, you look tired. Are you sleeping enough? I'm fine, Edna, I replied, forcing a smile. What's this surprise you mentioned? Edna's face lit up. Oh, you're going to love this! Come, come! She ushered us into the living room, where an elderly man sat perched on her floral sofa. He stood as we entered, revealing an impressively tall, lean frame. Marcus, Belinda, Edna announced, practically vibrating with excitement. I'd like you to meet Charles, my fiancé. The world tilted on its axis. I grabbed the back of a chair to steady myself, certain I'd misheard. Your fiancé? Marcus sputtered, his face a mask of confusion. Charles stepped forward, extending a weathered hand. Pleasure to meet you both. Edna's told me so much about you. I shook his hand numbly, my mind reeling. Edna was getting married? At her age? And why hadn't she mentioned this before? Mom, Marcus said slowly, when did this happen? Edna waved a dismissive hand. Oh, Charles and I have known each other for ages. We reconnected at my bridge club a few months ago, and well, she giggled girlishly. When you know, you know. I caught Marcus's eye, silently pleading for some sanity in this surreal moment. But he just grinned, pulling his mother into another hug. That's wonderful, Mom. I'm so happy for you. My heart sank. Of course he was thrilled. This was just another excuse for celebration, another reason to spend money we didn't have. We're thinking a June wedding, Edna continued, her eyes sparkling. Nothing too extravagant, of course, just close family and friends at the country club. I nearly choked. The country club? The same one that had rejected our membership application due to financial considerations? That sounds lovely, I managed, my voice strained. But Edna, are you sure this isn't a bit rushed? The temperature in the room seemed to drop 10 degrees. Edna's smile tightened, and Charles shifted uncomfortably. Rushed? Edna repeated, her tone dangerously sweet. My dear, at my age, every moment is precious. Why wait? Marcus shot me a warning glance. What Belinda means is, we want to make sure you have time to plan the perfect day. Edna's expression softened slightly. Oh, that's all taken care of. In fact, she paused dramatically. We were hoping you two might help with some of the arrangements, and perhaps contribute to the festivities. There it was, the other shoe dropping with a resounding thud. Of course, Marcus exclaimed before I could open my mouth. Anything for you, Mom? Right, Belinda? I felt trapped, cornered by their expectant gazes. How could I explain that we were drowning in debt, that every extra penny went towards keeping our own heads above water? We'd be happy to help, I heard myself say, the words tasting like ash. Just let us know what you need. Edna clapped her hands in delight. Wonderful! Oh, this is going to be such fun! As she launched into a detailed description of her dream wedding, I caught a glimpse of Charles. For just a moment, I saw something flicker in his eyes. Guilt? Uncertainty? Whatever it was, it vanished as quickly as it appeared, but it left me with a gnawing suspicion that there was more to this surprise engagement than met the eye. The moving truck rumbled away, leaving Edna's mountain of luggage piled in our driveway. I stared at the mess, my heart sinking. This wasn't happening. It couldn't be. Isn't this wonderful? Marcus beamed, hefting a floral suitcase. Mom living with us, just like old times. I forced a smile, bile rising in my throat. Wonderful, I echoed, my voice hollow. Edna tottered up the path, leaning heavily on her cane. Oh, Belinda dear, be a lamb and fetch my toiletries bag. It's the Louis Vuitton one. Of course it was. I bit back a retort and dutifully retrieved the designer bag, its price tag mocking me with every step. Once inside, Edna settled into our best armchair like a queen on her throne. Now, about my room. We've set up the guest room for you, Mom, Marcus said. It's got a lovely view of the garden. Edna's lips pursed. The guest room? But darling, I was hoping for something larger. Perhaps the master bedroom? I nearly dropped the bag I was holding. Our bedroom? Well, you two are younger, Edna reasoned. You can manage the stairs better than I can. Before I could protest, Marcus jumped in. Of course, Mom. Whatever makes you comfortable. We'll move our things right away. I gaped at him, disbelief warring with fury. But Edna was already moving on, her voice syrupy sweet. Belinda, while the boys handle the heavy lifting, perhaps you could whip up a little something? I'm famished after all this excitement. Gritting my teeth, I retreated to the kitchen. As I aggressively chopped vegetables for a salad, I could hear Edna directing Marcus on furniture placement upstairs. Our furniture. In her new room. Hours later, exhausted and aching, I collapsed onto our new bed in the guest room. Marcus flopped down beside me, grinning like a fool. Isn't this great? Mom seems so happy already. I turned to face him, struggling to keep my voice level. Marcus, we need to talk about this. How long is she planning to stay? He shrugged. As long as she needs to, I guess. The doctor said her blood pressure's been acting up. And what about her house? Her fiancé? Marcus's brow furrowed. Charles? Oh, that fell through. Turns out he was only after her money or something. Can you believe it? I could, actually. But I held my tongue, focusing on the more pressing issue. So she's here indefinitely? Marcus, we can't afford. Don't start, Belinda, he cut me off, his tone sharp. She's family. We take care of family. The next morning, I woke to find Edna already ensconced in the kitchen, rifling through our cabinets. Good heavens, she tutted. Don't you have any proper tea? This simply won't do. Before I could respond, she thrust a piece of paper into my hands. Be a dear, and pick up a few things for me, won't you? Nothing fancy, just the essentials. I scanned the list, my eyes widening at each outrageous item. Imported caviar, truffle oil. Edna, these aren't essentials, they're luxury items, we can't. Oh, pish-posh, she waved dismissively. I'll reimburse you, of course. Now hurry along, I've got a busy day ahead. Curious despite myself, I asked, busy with what? Edna's eyes gleamed. Well, if you must know, I've joined the most delightful club, the Golden Oak Society. We're having our first meeting here this afternoon. My stomach dropped. Here? Today? She nodded, oblivious to my distress. Just a small gathering, 10 or 12 ladies. You don't mind handling the refreshments, do you? Nothing too elaborate, some finger sandwiches, petit fours, that sort of thing. I stared at her, speechless. This woman had commandeered our bedroom, was sending me on errands for overpriced groceries, and now expected me to cater a party for her new social club? Oh, and one more thing, Edna added, her voice suddenly hesitant. I hate to ask, but, well, the club has dues, rather steep ones, I'm afraid. I was hoping you might be able to help out just this once. The final straw. I opened my mouth, ready to unleash years of pent-up frustration. But at that moment, Marcus appeared, yawning and stretching. Morning, ladies, he mumbled. What's for breakfast? Edna beamed at him. Your wonderful wife was just offering to make us something special. Weren't you, Belinda? I met her gaze, seeing the challenge there. The ball was in my court. I could expose her manipulations, risk my marriage, and shatter this fragile peace. Or I could swallow my pride again and play along. What would it be? The truth? Or another lie to add to the growing pile? I stared at the check in my hand, my vision blurring with unshed tears. $5,000. It might as well have been $5 million for all the difference it would make to our dwindling savings. Belinda, darling, Edna's voice dripped with honey-coated venom. You're not having second thoughts, are you? After all, it's for such a good cause. I swallowed hard, forcing myself to meet her gaze. Of course not, Edna. I'm happy to help your friend. The lie tasted bitter on my tongue, but what choice did I have? For weeks now, Edna had been weaving this tale of woe about her dear friend Mildred, supposedly on the brink of losing her home. Each day brought a new, heart-wrenching detail designed to chip away at my resolve. Oh, bless you, Edna cooed, snatching the check from my trembling fingers. Mildred will be so grateful. You know, she hasn't eaten a proper meal in days. I nodded numbly, already calculating which bills would have to go unpaid this month. As Edna tottered off, no doubt to deposit the check immediately, I sank onto the couch, my head in my hands. Everything okay, hon? Marcus appeared in the doorway, concern etched on his face. For a moment I considered telling him everything. The mounting debt, the constant drain on our resources, the gnawing suspicion that his mother wasn't being entirely truthful. But then I remembered the way he'd looked at me when I'd questioned Edna's move-in, the disappointment in his eyes. Fine, I lied, mustering a weak smile. Just a bit tired. He nodded, seemingly satisfied. Well, don't work too hard. My mom mentioned something about needing help with her club meeting later. Of course she did. I bit back a sigh as Marcus disappeared upstairs, leaving me alone with my thoughts and the ever-growing weight of our financial troubles. Hours later, as I arranged delicate finger sandwiches on Edna's prized silver platter, a commotion at the front door caught my attention. Edna, darling, a shrill voice called out, we're here! I peered around the corner to see a group of impeccably dressed women flooding into our living room. Leading the pack was a statuesque blonde, her diamonds glittering in the afternoon light. Vivian! Edna exclaimed, embracing the woman. So glad you could make it. Ladies, welcome to the Golden Oak Society's newest meeting place. My jaw dropped. This was Edna's small gathering? There had to be at least 20 women, each dripping in designer labels and expensive jewelry. As I scrambled to prepare more refreshments, snippets of conversation drifted my way. Simply must try the new spa at the country club. Thinking of summering in the Hamptons this year? That dreadful charity gala last week? What a bore. My head spun. These weren't the conversations of women concerned about a friend losing her home. These were the idle chatter of the wealthy and privileged. Suddenly, a familiar name caught my ear. Mildred, dear, that necklace is divine. Is it new? I froze, my hand halfway to the teapot. Mildred? Wasn't that the friend Edna said was in dire straits? Peering around the corner, I spotted an elegantly dressed woman, her neck adorned with a stunning diamond necklace that probably cost more than our mortgage. "Oh, this old thing." Mildred laughed, her voice light and carefree. "Just a little something I picked up in Paris last month." The teacup I was holding slipped from my grasp, shattering on the kitchen floor. The chatter in the living room died down, and I felt all eyes turn towards the kitchen. "Belinda?" Edna called out, her voice sharp. "Is everything all right in there?" I stood frozen, the pieces finally falling into place. The expensive club dues, the constant demands for money, the lavish lifestyle these women led. It had all been a lie. In that moment, I knew I had a choice to make. I could continue playing the dutiful daughter-in-law, sacrificing my financial security and self-respect for the sake of keeping the peace. Or I could stand up for myself, expose the truth, and face the consequences. Taking a deep breath, I stepped into the living room, my eyes locking with Edna's. The look of panic that flashed across her face told me everything I needed to know. "Ladies," I said, my voice surprisingly steady, "I think it's time we had a little chat about Mildred's financial situation." The silence in the room was deafening. 20 pairs of eyes bored into me, a mix of confusion and indignation on their perfectly made-up faces. Edna's smile had frozen, a brittle mask that threatened to shatter at any moment. "Belinda, dear," she said, her voice strained. "What on earth are you talking about?" I took a deep breath, steeling myself. "I'm talking about the $10,000 I lent you, Edna, the money you said was for Mildred's dire financial situation." Mildred's eyebrows shot up. "My financial situation? I assure you, I'm quite comfortable." "Exactly," I said, my voice gaining strength, "which is why I'm wondering where that money really went." A ripple of whispers swept through the room. Edna's face had gone pale, her eyes darting between me and her friends. "This is hardly the time or place," she began, but I cut her off. "No, I think this is exactly the time and place," I said, my anger finally boiling over. "You've been lying to me, Edna, using me to fund your lavish lifestyle while Marcus and I struggle to make ends meet." The room erupted in a cacophony of gasps and murmurs. I caught snippets of conversation. "How embarrassing! Poor Edna! What a dreadful scene!" But I kept my eyes fixed on my mother-in-law. Edna's facade crumbled, replaced by a look of cold fury. "How dare you?" she hissed. "After everything I've done for you and Marcus." "Everything you've done," I laughed bitterly. "You mean moving into our house, taking over our lives, and draining our bank account?" Just then, Marcus appeared in the doorway, his eyes wide with shock. "What's going on here?" "Your wife has lost her mind," Edna snapped, turning to him with tears in her eyes. "She's accusing me of theft in front of all my friends." Marcus looked between us, confusion etched on his face. "Belinda, what are you doing?" I felt a moment of doubt. Was I making a terrible mistake? But then I remembered the mounting bills, the sleepless nights, the constant stress of trying to keep our heads above water. "I'm telling the truth," I said firmly. "Your mother has been lying to us, Marcus. There is no friend in need. She's been using our money to fund her social club and who knows what else." The color drained from Marcus's face. "Mom, is this true?" Edna's expression hardened. "Of course not. Your wife is clearly jealous of my social connections. She's always resented me." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. "Jealous? Resented? Edna, I've bent over backwards trying to accommodate you." As the argument escalated, I noticed one of Edna's friends slipping out her phone, no doubt capturing the drama for posterity. The realization hit me like a ton of bricks. This wasn't just a family dispute anymore. Our dirty laundry was about to become very public. "Enough," Marcus shouted, silencing the room. He turned to the gathered women, his face flushed with embarrassment. "Ladies, I'm terribly sorry, but I'm going to have to ask you to leave. We clearly have some family matters to discuss." As the women filed out, shooting curious glances over their shoulders, I felt a mix of relief and dread. The truth was finally out, but at what cost? Once we were alone, Marcus rounded on me. "What the hell were you thinking, Belinda? Humiliating my mother like that?" I stared at him in disbelief. "Are you kidding me? Did you not hear a word I said?" Edna seized the opportunity, tears streaming down her face. "I can't believe you'd choose to believe her over your own mother, Marcus. After everything I've sacrificed for you, I watched as Marcus's resolve wavered, his eyes softening at his mother's distress. In that moment, I realized I was at a crossroads. I could back down, apologize, and try to salvage this mess. Or I could stand my ground and fight for the truth, even if it meant losing everything. As Marcus moved to comfort his mother, I made my decision. I'd been silent for too long, played the dutiful wife and daughter-in-law at the expense of my own well-being. No more. "Marcus," I said, my voice steady despite the trembling in my hands, "I need you to listen to me very carefully, because what I'm about to say will change everything." I took a deep breath, steadying myself for the storm I was about to unleash. "Marcus, your mother has been lying to us, not just about the money, but about everything." Marcus's face contorted with confusion and anger. "What are you talking about?" "The health issues. The needing to move in with us." "It was all a lie," I said, my voice surprisingly calm despite the chaos in my head. "She's been using our money to fund her lavish lifestyle and her precious Golden Oaks society." Edna let out an indignant gasp. "How dare you? Marcus, don't listen to her. She's clearly lost her mind." But I was beyond caring about Edna's theatrics. I pulled out my phone, scrolling through the photos I'd taken earlier that day. "Look at these, Marcus. Receipts for spa treatments, designer clothes, first-class tickets to Paris, all charged to our credit card." Marcus's eyes widened as he swiped through the images. This can't be right." "Oh, it's right," I said, my voice hardening. "And that's not even the worst of it. Remember that $10,000 I lent her for her friend in need? It went straight into the Golden Oaks Society's party fund." Edna's face had gone pale, her usual poise crumbling. I can explain." "Save it," I snapped. "I've heard enough of your explanations." Marcus looked between us, his face a mask of confusion and hurt. "Mom, is this true? Have you been lying to us this whole time?" For a moment I thought Edna might confess, but then her eyes hardened, and she straightened her spine. "Of course not. Your wife is clearly jealous of my social standing. She's trying to turn you against me, Marcus. Can't you see that?" I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Even now, faced with irrefutable evidence, she was still trying to manipulate the situation. "Jealous?" I laughed bitterly. "Of what? Your ability to leech off your own son? To destroy our financial stability for the sake of your ego?" Marcus held up his hands, looking overwhelmed. "Both of you, just stop. I can't think with all this yelling." "Fine," I said, my voice tight with suppressed anger. "Then let's talk numbers. Marcus, do you have any idea how much debt we're in because of your mother's health issues and friend in need?" He shook his head slowly, looking almost afraid to hear the answer. I pulled out a stack of bills from my bag, spreading them across the coffee table. Credit card debt, personal loans, our savings account drained dry. We're looking at over $50,000 in debt, Marcus. And for what? So your mother could play socialite with her rich friends? The color drained from Marcus's face as he stared at the bills. This can't be right. Mom, tell me this isn't true." Edna's lip quivered, but her eyes remained defiant. "You don't understand. I had to maintain appearances. The Golden Oaks Society is everything to me. Without it, I'm nothing." The admission hung in the air, heavy and damning. Marcus looked like he'd been slapped. "So it is true," he whispered. "You've been lying to us this whole time." I felt a momentary pang of sympathy for him, seeing his world crumble. But then I remembered all the sleepless nights, the constant stress, the sacrifices I'd made to keep us afloat. "I want her out," I said, my voice low but firm. "Now." Marcus's head snapped up. "Belinda, we can't just throw her out. She's my mother. And I'm your wife," I shouted, finally losing my composure. "The woman who's been holding this family together while you two played your little games. I'm done, Marcus. It's her or me." The ultimatum hung in the air, charged with years of resentment and betrayal. Marcus looked between us, torn between the woman who raised him and the woman he'd vowed to love and cherish. Edna seized the moment of hesitation. "Marcus, darling, you can't possibly choose her over your own mother, after everything I've done for you." I held my breath, watching Marcus's face. This was it. The moment that would define our future. As he opened his mouth to speak, I steeled myself for whatever came next, knowing that no matter what he said, nothing would ever be the same again. The silence that followed my ultimatum was deafening. I watched Marcus, my heart pounding, as he struggled with the impossible choice I'd laid before him. His eyes darted between Edna and me, conflict etched deep in the lines of his face. Finally, he spoke, his voice barely above a whisper. I can't choose between you. My heart sank. Even now, faced with irrefutable evidence of his mother's deceit, he couldn't bring himself to take a stand. Edna seized the moment, her voice dripping with false sympathy. Oh, my poor boy. You shouldn't have to choose. Belinda's just upset. We can work this out as a family. I felt something snap inside me. Family? I spat. Is that what you call this? Lying, manipulating, draining us dry? Marcus flinched at my tone. Belinda, please. We're all under a lot of stress. Maybe if we just calm down. Calm down? I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Marcus, we're drowning in debt because of her. How can you still defend her? He ran a hand through his hair, looking lost. She's my mother, Belinda. I can't just turn my back on her. In that moment, I saw our future unfold with crystal clarity. Years of struggle, of always coming second to Edna's wants and needs, of Marcus never truly standing up for me, for us. Fine, I said, my voice eerily calm. If that's how you feel, I'll make the choice for you. I walked to our bedroom, no, the guest room now, and pulled out the suitcase I'd hidden in the back of the closet weeks ago. I'd packed it in a moment of desperation, never truly believing I'd use it. Now, I was grateful for my foresight. When I returned to the living room, Marcus's eyes widened in panic. Belinda, what are you doing? What I should have done months ago, I replied, my resolve strengthening with each word. I'm leaving. Edna's triumphant smirk made my blood boil. Now, dear, there's no need for such dramatics. Why don't we all sit down and... Save it. I cut her off. I'm done listening to your lies. I turned to Marcus, fighting back tears. I love you, Marcus. I always have. But I can't do this anymore. I won't set myself on fire to keep you too warm. He reached for me, his eyes pleading. Belinda, please, we can figure this out. I'll get another job. We'll pay off the debt. I stepped back, shaking my head. It's not about the money, Marcus. It's about trust. It's about respect. And you've shown me that I'll never have either from you. With shaking hands, I pulled an envelope from my bag and placed it on the coffee table. These are divorce papers. I've already signed them. The color drained from Marcus's face. Divorce? Belinda, you can't be serious. I've never been more serious in my life, I replied, surprised by the steadiness in my voice. I deserve better than this, Marcus, and deep down I think you know that. Edna scoffed, her mask of concern slipping. Well, if that's how you feel, don't let the door hit you on the way out. I turned to her, years of pent-up anger and resentment boiling over. You know what, Edna? I feel sorry for you. You're so desperate for status and approval that you'd sacrifice your own son's happiness. I hope it was worth it. With that, I grabbed my suitcase and headed for the door. As I reached for the handle, Marcus called out, his voice breaking. Belinda, wait, please. I love you. I paused, my hand on the doorknob. For a moment, I allowed myself to imagine turning back, of giving him one last chance. But then I thought of all the broken promises, the constant sacrifices, the years of putting everyone else's needs before my own. I love you too, Marcus, I said softly, not turning around. But sometimes, love isn't enough. With those final words, I stepped out into the cool night air, closing the door on my old life. As I walked towards an uncertain future, I felt a strange mix of terror and exhilaration. For the first time in years, I was free. And despite the challenges ahead, I knew that whatever came next, I would face it on my own terms. 6 months after walking out that door, I stood in front of the courthouse, my heart pounding. Today was the final divorce hearing, and I was ready to close this chapter of my life for good. As I climbed the steps, I caught sight of Marcus and Edna, huddled together near the entrance. Marcus looked haggard, his once crisp suits replaced by wrinkled clothes that hung loosely on his frame. Edna, on the other hand, still clung to her designer handbag, though her perfectly coiffed appearance seemed forced, almost desperate. Our eyes met, and for a moment I felt a pang of, not regret, exactly, but a bittersweet acknowledgement of what could have been. Then I straightened my spine and walked past them, head held high. Inside the courtroom, my lawyer, Sarah, greeted me with a reassuring smile. Ready for this, Belinda? I nodded, surprising myself with my calm. More than ready. The proceedings began, a blur of legal jargon and formalities. But when it came time to discuss the financial settlement, the room crackled with tension. "Your Honor," Sarah began, "my client is seeking full repayment of the $10,000 loan made to Mrs. Edna Thompson, as well as half of all marital assets." Marcus's lawyer jumped in, his voice strained. "Your Honor, my client is not in a position to repay such a sum. The loan was a gift made in good faith." "Objection," Sarah interrupted. "We have evidence proving the deceptive nature of Mrs. Thompson's request for funds." The judge raised an eyebrow. "Proceed." As Sarah presented the damning evidence, bank statements, text messages, even photos from the lavish parties funded by my hard-earned money, I watched Marcus and Edna. Their faces crumpled, the weight of their actions finally sinking in. When the judge ruled in my favor, ordering full repayment and a fair division of assets, I felt a weight lift from my shoulders. It wasn't about the money, not really. It was about justice, about finally standing up for myself. Outside the courtroom, Marcus approached me, his eyes pleading. "Belinda, I'm so sorry for everything. I should have listened to you, should have seen what was happening." I looked at him, really looked at him, and felt a surge of pity. "I'm sorry too, Marcus. I hope you find happiness, I really do." As I turned to leave, Edna called out, her voice lacking its usual imperious tone. "Belinda, wait! I never meant for things to go this far. I just wanted to feel important," I finished for her. "I understand that, Edna, but not at the expense of others, not at the expense of your own son." Leaving them behind, I walked out into the sunlight, feeling lighter than I had in years. My new apartment waited across town, small but all mine. My job at the high school had become a source of joy again, now that I wasn't constantly stressed about money. As I drove home, I thought about the journey that had brought me here. The pain, the betrayal, the sleepless nights, but also the strength I'd found, the friendships I'd forged, the self-respect I'd reclaimed. Entering my apartment, I was greeted by the sight of fresh flowers on the table, a gift from my sister, celebrating my new beginning. I smiled, running my fingers over the soft petals. My phone buzzed with a text from Sarah. "Congratulations? Drinks to celebrate?" I typed back a quick "absolutely" before setting the phone down and walking to the window. The city sprawled before me, full of possibilities. For so long I'd defined myself by my roles: wife, daughter-in-law, caretaker. Now I was just Belinda, and for the first time in years, that felt like more than enough. As the sun began to set, painting the sky in brilliant hues of orange and pink, I felt a sense of peace wash over me. The road ahead might be uncertain, but I was ready to face it. No more sacrificing my happiness for others. No more dimming my light to make someone else shine. I was free. And in that freedom, I'd found something I thought I'd lost forever: hope. Turning from the window, I caught sight of my reflection. The woman staring back at me was stronger, wiser, and infinitely more resilient than the one who had walked out that door 6 months ago. "Here's to new beginnings," I whispered to myself, raising an imaginary toast to the future. Whatever came next, I knew one thing for certain: I was ready for it. All of it. And that, more than anything, felt like victory. The phone trembled in my hand as I dialed Alan's number for the 3rd time. My heart raced, each ring echoing the pounding in my chest. Finally he answered. "What is it, Camille?" His voice was sharp, irritated. I took a shaky breath. "Alan, I can't do this anymore. I feel so alone, even when you're here. It's like I'm living with a stranger." "Christ, not this again," he groaned. "You're being dramatic. I work hard to provide for us, and this is the thanks I get?" Tears stung my eyes. "That's not fair. I'm not asking for much, just for you to be present, to care." "I do care," Alan snapped. "But I can't be at your beck and call every minute. You knew what you were signing up for when you married me." His words hit like a slap. Did I? Because the man I married actually wanted to spend time with me. He didn't treat me like an inconvenience. "Oh, for God's sake," Alan muttered. "Look, I'm in the middle of something important. We'll talk about this later." "We never talk about it later," I said, my voice breaking. "That's the whole problem." "Camille, you're being ridiculous. Pull yourself together and stop acting like a child. I'll be home when I'm home." The line went dead. I stared at the phone, feeling hollow and numb. How had we gotten here? This wasn't the life I'd imagined when I said I do 5 years ago. A gentle knock on the door startled me. "Camille? Are you all right, dear?" It was Diane, Alan's mother. I quickly wiped my eyes. I'm fine, Diane. Just a little tired. The door creaked open, and Diane's concerned face appeared. I couldn't help overhearing, "Did you have another fight with Alan?" I nodded, unable to speak past the lump in my throat. Diane sighed and sat beside me on the bed. "Oh, sweetheart, I'm so sorry. My son can be difficult sometimes." "That's putting it mildly," I said with a bitter laugh. Diane patted my hand. "I know it's not easy living here with me. It's not what you imagined for your marriage." "No, Diane, it's not your fault," I assured her. "You've been nothing but kind. It's Alan," she finished. "I love my son, but I'm not blind to his faults. He takes after his father in some unfortunate ways." I looked at her, surprised by her frankness. "I don't know what to do anymore. I feel like I'm losing myself in this marriage." Diane's eyes hardened with resolve. "Then it's time we did something about it. You deserve better, Camille, and it's high time my son remembered the man he's supposed to be." "What do you mean?" I asked, a flicker of hope igniting in my chest. "I mean," Diane said, squeezing my hand, "that it's time we gave Alan a wake-up call, together." For the first time in months, I felt a spark of something other than despair. "What did you have in mind?" Diane's eyes twinkled with mischief. "Well, my dear, let's just say that sometimes a mother knows best how to handle her wayward son. Are you ready to fight for your marriage?" I straightened my shoulders, feeling a surge of determination. "Yes," I said firmly. "I'm ready." As Diane began to outline her plan, my phone buzzed with a text from Alan. "Working late, don't wait up." I showed it to Diane, who shook her head in disappointment. "Oh, Alan," she murmured, "you have no idea what's coming." Little did I know, as Diane and I plotted our next move, that this was just the beginning of a storm that would change all our lives forever. I stood in front of the bathroom mirror, staring at my reflection. The woman looking back at me seemed a stranger, tired eyes, worry lines etched around her mouth. How had I become this person? My mind drifted back to the day I first met Alan. God, he'd been charming then. We were both working on a big marketing campaign, our desks side by side. His quick wit and easy smile had drawn me in like a moth to flame. Earth to Camille, Alan's voice snapped me back to the present. He leaned against the door frame, impatience written across his face. "Are you planning on spending all day in here? We're going to be late for dinner with Mom." I sighed, applying a last swipe of lipstick. "I'm ready. Let's go." The drive to Diane's was tense, silence hanging heavy between us. As we pulled into the driveway, Alan turned to me. "Try to act normal tonight, okay? Mom doesn't need to hear about our problems." My jaw clenched. "Our problems? You mean the fact that you barely acknowledge my existence?" Alan's eyes flashed with anger. "Not this again. Just behave, all right?" Before I could retort, Diane opened the front door, beaming at us. "There you are. Come in, come in. Dinner's almost ready." As we stepped inside, the familiar scent of Diane's pot roast filled the air. It was comforting, a reminder of happier times when Alan and I first got married. We'd been so excited to start our life together, to find our own place and build our future. But then Alan had lost his job, and Diane had offered to let us stay with her just until things got back on track. That was 3 years ago. "So how are things?" Diane asked as we sat down to eat. Her eyes darted between Alan and me, sensing the tension. "Fine," Alan said curtly, shoveling food into his mouth. I plastered on a smile. "Everything's great, Diane. Thanks for having us over." Diane nodded, unconvinced. "You know, I was thinking, it must be hard for you two, still living here after all this time. Have you thought about looking for your own place?" Alan's fork clattered against his plate. "Mom, we've talked about this. It doesn't make financial sense right now." "But surely with both your salaries," Diane began. "Drop it, Mom," Alan snapped. "We're fine where we are." I stared at my plate, fighting back tears. This wasn't fine. None of this was fine. "Actually," I said, my voice barely above a whisper, "I've been thinking about that too, Diane. Maybe it is time we found our own place." Alan's head whipped towards me, his eyes blazing. "What are you talking about? We can't afford it." "We could if we budgeted," I countered, gaining courage. "I've been looking at some apartments." "Behind my back?" Alan's voice rose. "Jesus, Camille, do you ever stop nagging?" Diane's hand flew to her mouth. "Alan, don't speak to your wife that way." But Alan was on a roll now. "You want to know why we can't move out, Camille? Because you're terrible with money. Always buying useless crap we don't need. At least here, Mom keeps you in check. The room fell silent. I felt as if I'd been slapped. That's enough, Diane said firmly. Alan, apologize to your wife right now. Alan stood up abruptly, his chair scraping against the floor. I need some air. He stormed out, leaving Diane and me staring after him in shock. Oh, Camille, Diane said softly, reaching for my hand. I'm so sorry. I had no idea things were this bad. I couldn't hold back the tears any longer. They flowed freely as I confessed everything. The loneliness, the neglect, the growing chasm between Alan and me. As Diane held me, murmuring words of comfort, my phone buzzed. A text from Alan, don't wait up, staying at a friend's tonight. I showed it to Diane, who shook her head in disbelief. This can't go on, she said, a determined glint in her eye. It's time we did something about my son's behavior. Are you with me? Through my tears, I nodded. Whatever Diane had planned, I was all in. Things had to change, and they had to change now. The morning after our disastrous dinner, I woke to find Alan's side of the bed untouched. My stomach churned as I remembered his text from the night before. Where had he really gone? I trudged downstairs, the smell of coffee guiding me to the kitchen. To my surprise, Diane was already there, bustling around in her floral apron. Good morning, dear, she said, sliding a steaming mug towards me. I thought you could use this. I wrapped my hands around the warm ceramic, grateful for her thoughtfulness. Thanks, Diane. You didn't have to do this. She waved off my gratitude. Nonsense. We're family. Her eyes softened with concern. How are you holding up? I sighed, slumping into a chair. Honestly, I don't know. I feel like I'm drowning, Diane. And Alan, he's not even trying to throw me a lifeline. Diane sat across from me, her weathered hands covering mine. I want you to know something, Camille. No matter what happens with Alan, you'll always have a place here. You're like a daughter to me. Tears pricked my eyes. That means more than you know. Just then, we heard the front door open. Alan stumbled in, looking disheveled and reeking of alcohol. Where have you been? I demanded, anger flaring. He squinted at me, then at Diane. What's she doing here? I live here, remember? Diane's voice was cold. The question is, where were you all night? Alan waved his hand dismissively. Out. Needed to clear my head after that ambush last night. I stood up, fury coursing through me. Ambush? Is that what you call us wanting a normal conversation about our future? Our future is fine, Alan shouted. Why can't you just be happy with what we have? Because what we have isn't a marriage, Alan. It's barely even a roommate situation at this point. Diane stepped between us. Both of you, calm down. This isn't helping anyone. Alan glared at his mother. Stay out of this, Mom. It's none of your business. It became my business when you moved into my house, Diane shot back, and when you started treating your wife like she doesn't matter. Alan's face contorted with rage. Oh, so you're taking her side now? Perfect. Just perfect. He stormed upstairs, leaving Diane and me in stunned silence. I'm so sorry, I whispered, mortified by his behavior. Diane shook her head. Don't you dare apologize for him. This isn't your fault, Camille. As we cleaned up the kitchen, trying to process what had just happened, my phone buzzed. It was a text from an unknown number. He doesn't deserve you. You should leave him. I showed it to Diane, my hands shaking. Who could this be? Her brow furrowed. I don't know, but it's unsettling. Block the number for now. Throughout the day, Alan remained locked in our bedroom. Diane and I tiptoed around the house, speaking in hushed tones about what to do next. I think, Diane said carefully, it might be time to consider your options, Camille. This situation isn't healthy for anyone. I nodded, a lump forming in my throat. I know. I never thought it would come to this. As evening fell, Alan finally emerged. He looked haggard, his eyes bloodshot. Camille, he said, his voice hoarse. Can we talk? Alone? Diane squeezed my hand reassuringly before leaving us. Alan sat heavily on the couch. I've been thinking. Maybe you're right, about us needing our own place. Hope fluttered in my chest. Really? You mean it? He nodded. Yeah, I found an apartment. We can go see it tomorrow if you want. I was about to agree when my phone buzzed again. Another text from the unknown number. Don't trust him. He's lying to you. My blood ran cold. I looked up at Alan, searching his face for any sign of deception. What was really going on here? Camille? Alan prompted. What do you say? I swallowed hard, forcing a smile. Sure. Let's check it out. As Alan left the room, looking relieved, I couldn't shake the feeling that I was missing something crucial. Who was sending these messages? And more importantly, were they right about Alan? The apartment Alan showed me was perfect, spacious, bright, and far from his mother's watchful eye. As we walked through the rooms, I felt a glimmer of hope. Maybe this was the fresh start we needed. "So what do you think?" Alan asked, a rare smile on his face. I nodded, trying to match his enthusiasm. "It's lovely. When can we move in?" His smile faltered. "Well, there's just one thing. The deposit's a bit steep. I was thinking, maybe we could borrow from Mom?" And just like that, the bubble burst. "Are you kidding me, Alan? The whole point was to be independent." He held up his hands defensively. "It's just temporary. We'll pay her back." I shook my head, disappointment settling in my chest. "No, if we do this, we do it on our own." The drive home was tense. As we pulled into Diane's driveway, I made a decision. "Alan, I want to have a baby." He nearly choked. "What? Where is this coming from?" "I'm not getting any younger," I said, my heart racing. "And I thought maybe it would bring us closer." Alan's face hardened. "Camille, we can barely afford an apartment. How the hell are we supposed to afford a kid?" "We'd make it work," I insisted. "Lots of couples do." He laughed bitterly. "Yeah, couples who actually want kids. I told you when we got married, I'm not interested in being a father." His words hit me like a physical blow. "But I thought you might change your mind." "Well, I haven't," he snapped. "And frankly, I'm not sure you'd be cut out for motherhood anyway. You can barely take care of yourself." Tears stung my eyes as I got out of the car. "That's not fair, Alan. I've been taking care of both of us for years while you—" "While I what?" he challenged, following me inside. "While I work my ass off to provide for us?" "Provide what?" I shouted back. "We live with your mother. We have nothing of our own." Diane appeared in the hallway, concern etched on her face. "What's going on?" Alan threw up his hands. "Camille's lost her mind. She wants a baby now." "Is that so terrible?" Diane asked softly. "It is when she's not fit to be a mother," Alan spat. The room fell silent. I stared at my husband, a stranger wearing the face of the man I'd once loved. "How can you say that to me?" He didn't answer, just stormed off to our room, slamming the door behind him. Diane approached me cautiously. "Camille, honey." But I couldn't bear her sympathy right now. I grabbed my keys and ran out the door, ignoring her calls behind me. I drove aimlessly, tears blurring my vision. How had my life come to this? When had Alan become so cruel? My phone buzzed. Another text from the unknown number. "He'll never give you what you want, but I know someone who will." Curiosity overrode my better judgment. I replied, "Who are you?" The response came quickly. "Someone who knows Alan better than you think. Meet me at Rosewood Park in an hour if you want the truth." My hands shook as I stared at the message. This was crazy. Meeting a stranger based on cryptic texts. But then I thought of Alan's cold eyes, his cutting words. What did I have to lose? I turned the car toward Rosewood Park, my mind racing. Who would be waiting for me there? And what truth could they possibly reveal that would make sense of the mess my life had become? As I pulled into the parking lot, I saw a lone figure sitting on a bench near the pond. A woman, her face obscured by large sunglasses. My heart pounded as I got out of the car. This was it, the moment that would change everything. Taking a deep breath, I walked toward her, ready to face whatever came next. I approached the woman on the bench, my heart pounding. As I got closer, she removed her sunglasses, revealing a face I'd never seen before but somehow felt familiar. "Camille," she said, her voice tinged with sympathy. "I'm Linda." The name hit me like a slap. Linda, the woman from the mysterious texts. I sat down, my legs suddenly weak. "Who are you? How do you know Alan?" She took a deep breath. I was Alan's girlfriend." The world tilted on its axis. "Girlfriend? But he's married. To me." Linda's eyes filled with tears. "I'm so sorry, Camille. I didn't know he was married when we met. By the time I found out, I was already in love with him." My mind reeled. Alan, my husband, had a girlfriend? "How long?" I managed to choke out. "Almost a year," she whispered. A year. While I'd been struggling to save our marriage, begging for scraps of attention, Alan had been building a life with someone else. "Why are you telling me this?" I asked, anger rising to replace the shock. Linda looked away. "Because I'm pregnant, and Alan, he wants me to get rid of it." The words hung in the air between us. I thought of my conversation with Alan just hours ago, his cruel dismissal of my desire for a family. And now this? "I don't know what to do," Linda continued. I thought you deserved to know the truth, and I hoped maybe you could help me decide what to do next. I laughed bitterly. Help you? You've been sleeping with my husband for a year, and you want my help? She flinched. I know I have no right to ask, but I'm scared, Camille. Alan's not the man I thought he was. Join the club, I muttered. We sat in silence for a moment, two women betrayed by the same man. Finally, I stood up. I need to go. I can't process this right now. Linda nodded, handing me a piece of paper. My number, in case you want to talk more. I took it without thinking and walked away, my mind a whirlwind of emotions. How could Alan do this to me, to us, and a baby, the very thing he'd told me we couldn't have? When I got back to Diane's house, I found her waiting up for me, worry etched on her face. Camille, where have you been? I've been so worried. One look at her kind, concerned face, and I broke down. Through sobs, I told her everything, the texts, meeting Linda, Alan's betrayal. Diane held me close, her own tears falling. Oh, my dear girl, I'm so sorry. I had no idea Alan could be so cruel. As my sobs subsided, a strange calm settled over me. I looked at Diane, seeing not just my mother-in-law, but a true friend. What do I do now? Diane's eyes hardened with resolve. Now we fight back. Alan can't treat you this way and get away with it. But how? I asked, feeling lost. A slow smile spread across Diane's face. I have an idea. It's a bit unconventional, but it might be just what we need to give Alan the wake-up call he deserves. As Diane outlined her plan, I felt a mix of fear and exhilaration. It was risky, potentially disastrous, but after everything I'd learned, I was ready to take that risk. Okay, I said, straightening my shoulders. Let's do it. Diane squeezed my hand. That's my girl. Alan won't know what hit him. As we stayed up late into the night, plotting our next move, I realized something. In losing my husband, I'd gained something far more valuable, a true ally in Diane. Whatever came next, I wouldn't face it alone. Tomorrow, we'd set our plan in motion, and Alan? He was about to learn that hell hath no fury like two women scorned. My hands trembled as I dialed Alan's number, Diane's plan echoing in my mind. One phone call to set everything in motion. I took a deep breath, steeling myself for what was to come. What is it, Camille? Alan's irritated voice crackled through the speaker. I swallowed hard, forcing a tremor into my voice. Alan, I need your help. It's your mother. Mom? What about her? She's been different lately. Cruel. I think she wants me out of the house. There was a pause, then a heavy sigh. Camille, don't start this again. Mom's been nothing but kind to you. I pressed on, my heart racing. No, Alan, you don't understand. Yesterday, she threatened me. Said if I didn't leave, she'd make my life hell. That doesn't sound like Mom at all, Alan said, his tone dismissive. You're probably just misunderstanding. Misunderstanding. I injected real anger into my voice now. Your mother told me I was worthless, that you'd be better off without me. How am I supposed to misunderstand that? Alan's voice hardened. Look, I'm sure if we all sit down and talk. Talk? I nearly shouted. Alan, I'm scared to be in this house. Don't you care at all? There was a long silence, then quietly, Of course I care, Camille, but what do you want me to do? It's her house. My blood ran cold. Even faced with the idea of his mother threatening his wife, Alan couldn't muster any real concern. Diane had been right. He truly didn't care anymore. I want you to stand up for me, I said, my voice breaking. To choose me, for once. Alan sighed again. Camille, Suddenly I heard a muffled female voice in the background. Babe, who are you talking to? My heart stopped. That wasn't Diane's voice. No one, Alan said quickly, his voice distant as if he'd moved the phone away. Just work stuff. I'll be there in a minute. Ice flooded my veins. Linda. He was Linda. Alan, I said, my voice deadly calm now. Who's there with you? What? No one. Look, Camille, I've got to go. We'll talk about this mom thing later, okay? The line went dead. I stared at the phone, shock and rage warring inside me. Diane appeared in the doorway, her face etched with concern. Camille, what happened? I told her everything, Alan's callous response to our fabricated story and the damning evidence of the female voice. Diane's face hardened. That's it, no more games. It's time we confronted him directly. I nodded, a strange calm settling over me. You're right, but first there's something I need to do. I pulled out the piece of paper Linda had given me and dialed the number. Hello? Linda's hesitant voice answered. Linda, it's Camille. We need to talk. In person. Now. There was a pause, then a shaky exhale. Okay, where? I gave her the address of a nearby cafe. And Linda? Bring any proof you have of your relationship with Alan. Texts, photos, anything. Okay, but why? Because, I said, my voice steel, we're going to take that bastard down. As I hung up, I caught Diane's approving nod. That's my girl, she said softly. I grabbed my keys, a newfound determination coursing through me. I'll be back soon, and then we're going to confront Alan once and for all. As I drove to meet Linda, my mind raced with possibilities. This was it, the moment everything would change. Alan's web of lies was about to come crashing down around him, and I was done being the victim. It was time to fight back. My hands shook as I spread the damning evidence across Diane's kitchen table. Photos, text messages, even hotel receipts. Linda had provided it all. Each piece was a knife to my heart, but also fuel for the fire burning inside me. Diane's face was a mask of controlled fury as she examined the proof of her son's betrayal. That miserable lying snake, she muttered. I nodded, my throat tight. We have to confront him, tonight. Just then my phone buzzed. A text from Alan. On my way home, we need to talk about Mom. Diane and I exchanged glances. This was it. Are you ready? She asked, squeezing my hand. I took a deep breath. As I'll ever be. We heard Alan's key in the lock, and my heart raced. He walked in, his face clouding when he saw us both waiting. What's going on? He asked warily. I stood, my voice steadier than I felt. We know everything, Alan. About Linda, about the baby. The color drained from his face. Camille, I can explain. Explain? Diane's voice cracked like a whip. Explain how you've been lying to your wife to me for over a year? Alan's eyes darted between us. Mom, this doesn't concern you. The hell it doesn't, Diane shouted. You brought that woman into my house, Alan. You made a fool of all of us. I stepped forward, laying out the evidence on the coffee table. No more lies, Alan. It's over. He stared at the photos, the messages, his face a mix of shock and anger. You went through my things? You talked to Linda? Don't you dare try to turn this around on us, I spat. You're the one who betrayed your vows, who's been living a double life. Alan's face hardened. Fine. You want the truth? I'm in love with Linda. I have been for months. She understands me in a way you never could, Camille. His words hit me like a physical blow, but I refused to let him see how much they hurt. And the baby? Were you just going to abandon your child? He flinched. That was complicated. I told Linda we couldn't keep it. It would ruin everything. Diane made a sound of disgust. I didn't raise you to be this kind of man, Alan, to throw away your family, your responsibilities. You didn't raise me at all, Alan shouted. You were too busy trying to control every aspect of my life. So that's why we're still living in this damn house. I watched mother and son face off, years of resentment bubbling to the surface. But I wasn't about to let Alan deflect from his actions. Enough, I yelled. This isn't about your childhood issues, Alan. This is about the fact that you've been lying to me, cheating on me for months, and now you have a child on the way that you're trying to abandon. Alan's face twisted with rage. What do you want from me, Camille? An apology? Fine, I'm sorry. I'm sorry I ever married you. I'm sorry I wasted years of my life trying to make this work when we both know it's been over for a long time. His words hung in the air, sharp and final. I felt something inside me break, but also something else, a sense of release. You're right about one thing, I said quietly. It is over. I want a divorce. Alan blinked, clearly not expecting this. What? I turned to Diane, who nodded in support. I'm leaving, Alan. Tonight, and I'm taking half of everything we own. You can't do that, he sputtered. Watch me, I said, my voice steel. You made your choice. Now I'm making mine. As I walked out of the room to pack my bags, I heard Diane's voice, cold and final. And you, my son, will be leaving too. This house is no longer your home. I climbed the stairs, my heart pounding. This was it, the end of my marriage, but also the beginning of something new. Whatever came next, I knew I wouldn't face it alone. I had Diane, and more importantly, I had myself. It was time to reclaim my life on my own terms. The morning sun streamed through the windows of Diane's guest room, where I'd spent the night after the explosive confrontation with Alan. I sat on the edge of the bed, staring at the divorce papers in my hands. This was it, the final step in reclaiming my life. A soft knock at the door pulled me from my thoughts. Diane entered, her face etched with concern and determination. Are you ready, dear? I nodded, standing up, as I'll ever be. We made our way downstairs where Alan waited, his face a mask of anger and defeat. The tension in the room was palpable as we all sat around the kitchen table. "Before we do this," I said, my voice steadier than I felt, "I want to know why, Alan. Why wasn't I enough?" Alan's jaw clenched. "It wasn't about you, Camille. I felt trapped in this house, in this life. Linda was an escape." "An escape?" Diane's voice cracked like a whip. "You destroyed your marriage for an escape?" Alan's eyes flashed. "You're one to talk, Mom. You've been suffocating me for years, always hovering, always judging." I watched as mother and son glared at each other, years of resentment bubbling to the surface. But I wasn't about to let Alan deflect from his actions. "Enough," I said firmly. "This isn't about your mother, Alan. This is about the choices you made, the lies you told, the family you're abandoning." Alan's face crumpled. "I never meant for it to go this far. I didn't want to hurt anyone." "But you did," I said softly. "You hurt all of us, and now we all have to live with the consequences." I slid the divorce papers across the table. Alan stared at them for a long moment before picking up the pen. As he signed, I felt a weight lift from my shoulders. It was over. Really, truly over. "What happens now?" Alan asked, his voice small. Diane spoke up, her tone resolute. "Now you leave. This house is no longer your home. I'm signing it over to Camille." Alan's head snapped up. "What, Mom, you can't." "I can and I am," Diane cut him off. "Camille needs a fresh start, and so do I. We're going to sell this place and split the proceeds. Then we're both moving on, together." I looked at Diane in shock. We hadn't discussed this. "Diane, I can't accept." She reached across the table, squeezing my hand. "You can, and you will. You're the daughter I always wanted, Camille. Let me do this for you, for us." Tears welled in my eyes as I nodded, overwhelmed by her generosity and love. Alan stood abruptly, his chair scraping against the floor. "So that's it? You're both just cutting me out of your lives?" I met his gaze steadily. "You cut yourself out, Alan. But it doesn't have to be forever. If you get help, if you make amends, especially to Linda and your child, maybe someday we can have a relationship again. But for now, yes, this is goodbye." As Alan walked out the door, I felt a chapter of my life closing. But instead of sadness, I felt hope blooming in my chest. Diane and I spent the rest of the day making plans. We'd sell the house, find new places to live, close to each other, but not too close. We talked about trips we wanted to take, hobbies we wanted to pursue. For the first time in years, I felt excited about the future. That night, as we sat on the porch watching the sunset, Diane turned to me with a smile. "You know, Camille, I always wanted a daughter. I just never expected to find her quite like this." I leaned my head on her shoulder, feeling truly at peace. I always wanted a mother who understood me. Looks like we both got our wish. As the sky turned from gold to purple, I realized that sometimes family isn't about blood. It's about choice. It's about love. And Diane and I, we'd chosen each other. We'd weathered the storm together and come out stronger on the other side. Whatever the future held, I knew one thing for certain: I wasn't alone anymore. And that was worth everything. The sound of shattering glass jolted me from my thoughts. I rushed to the kitchen, my heart pounding, to find Alex standing over a broken vase, his face twisted in frustration. "Damn it, Laura, why'd you put this here?" he snapped, gesturing at the shards scattered across the floor. I bit back a retort. The vase had been in the same spot for years. "I'm sorry, dear. I'll clean it up." As I knelt to gather the pieces, Alex huffed and stormed out of the room. I heard the front door slam moments later. So much for our quiet Sunday afternoon. I sighed, dumping the broken glass into the trash. My phone buzzed, and I saw a text from my father-in-law, Victor. "Laura, can you come by? Need to talk. Important." Curiosity piqued. I grabbed my keys and headed out. Victor was waiting on the porch when I arrived, his usually jovial face creased with worry. "Laura, thank goodness you're here," he said, ushering me inside. "Is Alex with you?" I shook my head. "He went out. What's wrong, Victor?" He led me to the living room, where we sat on the floral-patterned couch. "I need to tell you something, but you have to promise to keep it between us." "Of course," I said, concern growing. "What is it?" Victor took a deep breath. "I went to the doctor last week. The results, they're not good, Laura. I have cancer, stage 4. The words hit me like a physical blow. "Oh, Victor," I whispered, reaching for his hand. "I'm so sorry. Does Judith know?" He shook his head. "No, and I don't want her to. Not yet. You know how she gets." I did know, My mother-in-law's overbearing nature would only make things worse. But Alex. Not Alex either, Victor said firmly. Please, Laura, I need time to process this myself before I deal with their reactions. I nodded, though keeping such a secret felt wrong. What can I do to help? Just be here, he said, squeezing my hand. I may need someone to talk to, someone who won't fuss or panic. Of course, I promised. Anything you need. As if on cue, we heard the front door open. Judith's voice rang out. Victor, are you home? Victor's eyes widened in panic. I squeezed his hand reassuringly before calling out. In here, Judith. Just stopped by for a quick hello. Judith appeared in the doorway, her eyes narrowing as she took in the scene. Laura, what a surprise. I stood, forcing a smile. I was just leaving, actually. Thanks for the chat, Victor. As I moved to leave, Judith's hand on my arm stopped me. Before you go, dear, have you given any thought to what we discussed? About the summer house? I blinked, confused. I'm sorry? The inheritance, dear, Judith said, her voice sickly sweet. Victor and I aren't getting any younger, you know. It's important to have these things sorted out. I glanced at Victor, who looked uncomfortable. I don't think now's the time. Nonsense, Judith interrupted. It's never too early to plan. We wouldn't want any misunderstandings later on. The implication in her words made my skin crawl. I forced another smile. Of course not, but I really must be going. As I drove home, my mind raced. Victor's illness, Judith's thinly veiled greed, Alex's indifference, it was all too much. I pulled into our driveway, steeling myself for whatever mood Alex might be in. The house was quiet when I entered. I found Alex in his study, engrossed in something on his computer. Hey, I said softly. Everything okay? He barely glanced up. Fine. Where were you? Just visiting your parents, I said, watching his reaction carefully. Your dad seemed off. Alex shrugged. Probably just tired. Did Mom say anything about the will? His casual tone sent a chill down my spine. The will? Why would she? No reason, he said quickly. Just curious. As I left the room, a sinking feeling settled in my stomach. Something was very wrong in this family, and I was caught right in the middle of it. The next morning, I woke to an empty bed. Alex had already left for work, not bothering to say goodbye. I sighed, pushing away the hurt. There were more pressing matters to attend to. I arrived at Victor's house just after 9, armed with homemade soup and a forced smile. Judith answered the door, her eyes narrowing suspiciously. Laura, what are you doing here? I held up the soup container. I thought I'd bring something over for Victor. He mentioned not feeling well yesterday. Judith's lips thinned. How thoughtful. I'm sure he'll appreciate it, though. He's resting now. As she spoke, Victor appeared behind her. Is that Laura? Come in, dear. Judith's scowl deepened, but she stepped aside. I followed Victor to the living room, feeling Judith's eyes boring into my back. How are you feeling? I asked softly once we were seated. Victor glanced towards the kitchen where Judith had disappeared. Not great, he admitted. The pain's getting worse. My heart ached. Have you considered telling them? They should know, Victor. He shook his head firmly. Not yet. Judith would smother me. And Alex? He trailed off, a look of disappointment crossing his face. I understood. Alex's indifference towards his father was painfully obvious. At least let me help more, I pleaded. I could drive you to appointments, bring meals. What appointments? Judith's sharp voice cut through the room. We both jumped, not having heard her approach. Victor recovered first. Just a checkup, dear, nothing to worry about. Judith's eyes darted between us, suspicion clear. I see. And Laura's going to drive you, is she? How convenient. The accusation in her tone made my cheeks burn. I just offered to help. I'm sure you did, Judith interrupted. You're always so helpful, aren't you, Laura? Especially when it comes to my husband. I gaped at her, shocked by the implication. Victor stood abruptly. That's enough, Judith. Laura's family. Judith's laugh was cold. Family? Please. She's after something, mark my words. The only one after something is you, I snapped, my patience finally breaking. All you care about is what you might inherit. The room fell silent. Judith's face turned an alarming shade of red. How dare you? I think you should leave, Victor said quietly. It took me a moment to realize he was talking to me. Hurt and anger warred within me as I gathered my things. As I reached the door, I heard Judith's triumphant voice. I always knew she was trouble, Victor. It's about time you saw it, too. I drove home in a daze, tears blurring my vision. How had things gone so wrong? I was only trying to help to honor Victor's wishes. Now I'd been all but banned from the house. When I arrived home, I was surprised to find Alex's car in the driveway. I found him in the kitchen, rifling through drawers. "You're home early," I said cautiously. He barely glanced up. "Looking for Dad's old business papers. Mom called, said I should check on some investments." My blood ran cold. "Investments? What are you talking about?" Alex sighed impatiently. "The family trust, Laura. Dad's not getting any younger, and we need to make sure everything's in order." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. "Your father isn't even dead, and you're already divvying up his assets?" "Don't be dramatic," Alex scoffed. "It's just good planning, not that you'd understand." The casual cruelty of his words stung. "You should be more concerned about your father's health than his money," I said, my voice shaking. Alex finally looked at me, his eyes narrowing. "What's that supposed to mean? Do you know something?" I hesitated, torn between keeping Victor's secret and exposing the truth. Before I could decide, Alex's phone rang. He answered, turning away from me. "Mom? Yeah, I'm looking now. Don't worry, we'll figure it out." As he spoke, a realization hit me like a thunderbolt. Alex and Judith were in this together, plotting behind Victor's back, and I was the only one who could stop them. I couldn't shake the feeling of dread that had settled in my stomach. For days, I'd been trying to reach Victor, but my calls went unanswered. Even my attempts to visit were thwarted by Judith's icy presence at the door. "He's resting," she'd say, her eyes gleaming with barely concealed triumph. Best not to disturb him. On the 5th day, I decided enough was enough. I drove to their house, determined to see Victor no matter what, but as I pulled up, I saw an ambulance in the driveway, its lights flashing silently. My heart pounding, I rushed to the front door. It swung open before I could knock, revealing Alex's ashen face. "What happened?" I demanded, pushing past him. "Dad's gone," Alex said, his voice hollow. He passed in his sleep. The world tilted beneath my feet. "No," I whispered, "that's impossible. I just spoke to him last week. He was fine." Alex's eyes narrowed. "Was he? You seemed awfully concerned about his health lately. What did you know, Laura?" Before I could respond, Judith appeared, her face a mask of grief. But there was something in her eyes, a calculating gleam that made my skin crawl. "Oh, Laura," she said, her voice dripping with false sympathy. "If only you'd been here. Victor asked for you, you know, right at the end." The accusation in her words was clear. I felt my cheeks burn with anger and guilt. "I tried to come," I said. "You wouldn't let me in." Now, Judith soothed, patting my arm. "There's no need for hysteria. What's done is done." As the paramedics wheeled Victor's body out, covered in a sheet, I felt a piece of my heart break. I'd failed him. I should have told Alex and Judith about his illness, should have insisted on being there. "We'll need to start planning the funeral," Alex said, his voice oddly detached. "Mom and I were thinking you could handle the arrangements, Laura. You're good at that sort of thing." I stared at him, incredulous. "You want me to plan the funeral? For your father?" Judith nodded, her eyes glittering. "It's the least you could do, dear. After all, you weren't here when he needed you most." The unfairness of it all threatened to choke me, but as I looked at their expectant faces, a sudden clarity washed over me. They were setting me up, using me as a scapegoat for their own neglect. "Fine," I said, my voice steady. "I'll take care of everything." As I turned to leave, I heard Judith murmur to Alex, "Make sure she doesn't go overboard. We don't want to deplete the estate unnecessarily." I clenched my fists, fighting back tears of rage. How could they be so callous, so focused on money when Victor had just died? Back at home, I sat at the kitchen table, surrounded by funeral brochures and to-do lists. But my mind was elsewhere, replaying every interaction with Victor over the past weeks. Something wasn't right. Victor had been ill, yes, but not on death's door. And the way Alex and Judith were acting, it was all wrong. My phone buzzed with a text from Alex. "Don't forget to pick up Dad's suits from the dry cleaner, and make sure you get itemized receipts for everything." I stared at the message, a chill running down my spine. They weren't grieving. They were covering their tracks. As I sat there, a terrible suspicion began to form in my mind. What if Victor's death wasn't natural? What if Alex and Judith had... No, I couldn't even think it. But the pieces were falling into place, painting a picture too horrifying to contemplate. I looked at the funeral plans spread before me and made a decision. I would play along for now, but I would find out the truth about Victor's death, no matter what it cost me, and if my suspicions were correct, I would make sure Alex and Judith paid for what they'd done. The day of Victor's funeral dawned gray and somber, matching my mood perfectly. I stood in front of the mirror, adjusting my black dress, my mind racing with suspicions and half-formed plans. I had to find out the truth. But how? At the church, I watched as mourners filed in, their faces a mix of grief and curiosity. I'd planned everything meticulously, just as Alex and Judith had demanded, but I had a few surprises in store. As I took my seat in the front pew, I felt Alex's hand on my shoulder. "You did good, Laura," he whispered, his breath hot against my ear. "Dad would have appreciated it." I fought the urge to shrug off his touch. "I'm sure he would have," I replied, my voice steady despite the anger boiling inside me. The service began, a parade of hollow eulogies from people who barely knew Victor. When it was Alex's turn to speak, I steeled myself for more lies. "My father was a great man," Alex began, his voice thick with fake emotion. "He always put family first and taught me the value of hard work and perseverance." I almost laughed out loud. Alex had never worked hard a day in his life, and the only thing he'd inherited from Victor was his money. But then, Alex's speech took an unexpected turn. In fact, just before he passed, Dad and I had a long talk about the future of our family business. He was so excited about the new direction we were planning to take it. I sat up straighter, my heart pounding. What was Alex talking about? Victor had never mentioned any business plans to me. "Of course," Alex continued, his eyes darting to Judith. "Mom was instrumental in helping us make these decisions. She always knew what was best for Dad." A murmur rippled through the congregation. I glanced at Judith, who was nodding along, a small smile playing on her lips. Suddenly a voice rang out from the back of the church. "That's not true." All heads turned to see Victor's old business partner, Frank, standing up. Victor never wanted to change the business. He told me just last week he was thinking of selling it and retiring. The church erupted in whispers. Alex's face turned pale, while Judith's eyes blazed with fury. "How dare you?" she hissed at Frank. "This is a funeral, not a business meeting." But Frank wasn't finished. "And what's this about Judith being involved?" Victor always said she had no head for business. He wouldn't have let her anywhere near those decisions. I watched in stunned silence as chaos unfolded. Alex stumbled through the rest of his speech, sweat beading on his forehead. Judith sat rigid, her knuckles white as she gripped her purse. As we filed out of the church, I overheard Alex and Judith arguing in hushed tones. "How could you be so stupid?" Judith snapped. "Mentioning the business like that? Now everyone will be asking questions." "I was trying to establish our claim." Alex shot back. "How was I supposed to know that old fool Frank would be here?" "We need to be more careful," Judith warned. "If anyone starts digging—" Their voices faded as they moved away, but I'd heard enough. My suspicions were confirmed. They were hiding something, and it had to do with Victor's death and the family business. As I walked to my car, my mind was made up. I couldn't confront them directly. Not yet. I needed proof, and I knew just where to start looking. I pulled out my phone and dialed Frank's number. "Hello, Frank. It's Laura. We need to talk about Victor. There's something not right about all this, and I think you can help me figure out what." As I hung up, I felt a mix of fear and determination. I was stepping into dangerous territory, but for Victor's sake, I had to uncover the truth. Whatever Alex and Judith were hiding, I was going to find out. And when I did, they would pay for what they'd done. The days following Victor's funeral were a blur of forced smiles and barely concealed tension. I played my part, the dutiful daughter-in-law, while secretly meeting with Frank to unravel the mystery surrounding Victor's death and the family business. One evening, as I was sorting through Victor's belongings, a task Alex had conveniently delegated to me, I stumbled upon a hidden compartment in his old desk. My heart raced as I carefully extracted a small leather-bound journal. As I flipped through the pages, Victor's familiar handwriting revealed a shocking truth. He had suspected Alex and Judith of embezzling funds from the company for months. The last entry, dated just days before his death, sent chills down my spine. I confronted Alex today. He denied everything, but I saw the guilt in his eyes. "I'm meeting with my lawyer tomorrow to change my will. I can't let them get away with this." My hands shook as I closed the journal. Victor had known. He was going to expose them, and they... No, I couldn't let myself think it. But the evidence was mounting. Lost in thought, I didn't hear the front door open. Alex's voice startled me back to reality. "Laura, what are you doing in here?" I quickly shoved the journal into my bag. "Just sorting through some papers like you asked." Alex's eyes narrowed suspiciously. "Find anything interesting?" "No," I lied smoothly. "Just old receipts and documents." He nodded, seemingly satisfied. "Well, don't spend all night on it. Mom's coming over for dinner to discuss the reading of Dad's will." My stomach churned at the thought of sitting across from them, knowing what I now knew, but I had to keep up appearances. "Of course. I'll start dinner soon." As Alex left the room, I let out a shaky breath. I needed to act fast, but I had to be careful. One wrong move, and I could lose everything, including my life. During dinner, I watched Alex and Judith closely, noting their shared glances and cryptic comments about the will. I played my part, nodding and smiling at the appropriate moments, all while my mind raced with plans. As Judith was leaving, I overheard her whisper to Alex, "Make sure she doesn't suspect anything. We're too close to let it all fall apart now." That night, unable to sleep, I slipped out of bed and made my way to Alex's study. With trembling hands, I booted up his computer. Thanks to years of his carelessness, I knew his password. What I found made my blood run cold. Emails between Alex and Judith discussing not just the embezzlement but plans to take care of Victor if he became a problem. The last email, sent the day before Victor's death, simply read, "It's done. No loose ends." I stifled a gasp, my mind reeling. They had actually done it. They had killed Victor to cover up their crimes. As I was about to log off, a new email notification popped up. It was from Judith. The lawyer called. "We'll reading tomorrow at 2 p.m. Make sure Laura doesn't attend. We can't risk her finding out about the changes Victor made." My heart pounded in my chest. They were planning to cut me out completely to ensure their secret remained safe. In that moment, staring at the damning evidence on the screen, I made my decision. I couldn't confront them directly. It was too dangerous. But I couldn't let them get away with this either. With shaking hands, I pulled out my phone and dialed a number I never thought I'd use. "Detective Johnson, this is Laura Matthews. I need to report a murder." As I hung up, a mix of fear and determination washed over me. There was no turning back now. Tomorrow, at the will reading, everything would change, and I would be ready. My heart pounded as I entered the lawyer's office, Victor's journal and a small recording device hidden in my purse. Alex and Judith were already there, their faces masks of false grief. The lawyer, Mr. Simmons, nodded gravely as I took my seat. "Mrs. Matthews, I'm glad you could join us," he said, his eyes flickering to Alex and Judith. "Shall we begin?" Alex cleared his throat. "Actually, I don't think Laura needs to be here for this. It's a family matter after all." I felt a surge of anger. "I am family, Alex. I was Victor's daughter-in-law for 20 years. Before Alex could argue, Mr. Simmons intervened. "Mr. Matthews, your father specifically requested Mrs. Matthews' presence for the reading of the will." I saw a flash of panic cross Alex and Judith's faces. This wasn't part of their plan. Mr. Simmons began reading the will, and with each word, the tension in the room grew thicker. Victor had left the bulk of his estate to charity, with only a small portion going to Alex and Judith. But the real bombshell came at the end. "And to my dear daughter-in-law, Laura," Mr. Simmons read, "I leave my personal effects and the contents of my private safe, including all documents pertaining to the family business." The room exploded into chaos. Judith leapt to her feet, her face contorted with rage. "This is preposterous. She has no right." Alex grabbed my arm, his fingers digging painfully into my skin. "What did you do?" he hissed. "What lies did you tell my father?" I wrenched my arm free, my voice steady despite my racing heart. "I didn't tell him anything, Alex, but maybe you should explain what you and your mother have been up to." Mr. Simmons looked bewildered. "I'm not sure I understand." "Oh, I think you will," I said, pulling out Victor's journal and the recording device. "I have evidence of embezzlement and... worse." Alex lunged for the journal, but I was quicker. I pressed play on the recording device, and his own voice filled the room. "Mom, it's done. Dad won't be a problem anymore. Make sure you destroy all the evidence of the transfers." The color drained from Alex and Judith's faces. Mr. Simmons stood, his expression a mix of shock and disgust. I think I need to call the authorities. What happened next was a blur. Alex made a desperate grab for the evidence, knocking over a lamp in the process. In the chaos, Judith slipped out of the room. I clutched Victor's journal to my chest, backing away from Alex's advancing form. "You don't understand," he snarled, his eyes wild. "We had no choice. Dad was going to ruin everything." "By exposing your crimes?" I shot back. "You killed him, Alex. Your own father." Suddenly, the door burst open. Detective Johnson, whom I'd called the night before, entered with 2 uniformed officers. "Alexander Matthews, Judith Matthews, you're under arrest for the murder of Victor Matthews and embezzlement." As the officers handcuffed a stunned Alex, I felt a wave of relief wash over me. It was over. Justice for Victor was finally within reach, but my relief was short-lived. As they led Alex away, he turned to me, his eyes burning with hatred. "This isn't over, Laura. You'll pay for this. I swear, you'll regret the day you crossed us." As the door closed behind them, I sank into a chair, the full weight of what had just happened crashing down on me. I had exposed the truth, but at what cost? My marriage, my safety, my entire life as I knew it was now in shambles. Mr. Simmons placed a comforting hand on my shoulder. "Mrs. Matthews, are you all right?" I looked up at him, tears blurring my vision. "I don't know," I whispered. "What happens now?" Little did I know, the worst was yet to come. Alex's threat wasn't empty, and the battle for justice and my own survival was far from over. The courtroom buzzed with tension as I took the stand. Alex and Judith glared at me from the defendant's table, their eyes burning with hatred. I swallowed hard, reminding myself why I was here. For Victor. For justice. "Mrs. Matthews," the prosecutor began, "please tell the court about the document you found in your late father-in-law's safe." I took a deep breath. It was a letter addressed to me. Victor knew what Alex and Judith were up to. Suddenly, Alex's lawyer jumped up. "Objection! Hearsay!" The judge nodded. "Sustained. Mrs. Matthews, please stick to what you personally witnessed." I felt a flicker of panic. How could I tell Victor's story without his words? But then I remembered his final gift to me. "Your Honor, I have Victor's final video message. He recorded it the day before he died." The courtroom erupted in whispers. Alex's face turned ashen, while Judith gripped the table so hard her knuckles turned white. As the bailiff set up the video, I caught Frank's eye in the gallery. He gave me an encouraging nod. We'd prepared for this moment, but nothing could have truly readied me for what came next. Victor's face filled the screen, his eyes tired but determined. "Laura, if you're watching this, then I'm gone, and things have probably gotten very ugly. I'm sorry for putting you in this position, but you're the only one I can trust." He went on to detail the embezzlement scheme, how he'd confronted Alex and Judith, and his fears for his own safety. "I've left everything to charity," he continued. "There's nothing left for them to fight over. The only thing of value I have is the truth, and I'm entrusting that to you, Laura." As the video ended, the courtroom was dead silent. I looked at Alex and Judith, expecting to see defeat. Instead, I saw something that chilled me to the bone. Calculation. The defense attorney stood. "Your Honor, while this video is certainly dramatic, it proves nothing. Mr. Matthews was clearly not in his right mind at the time of recording. We have medical records." "Objection," the prosecutor interrupted. "The defense has presented no such records." As the lawyers argued, I felt a tap on my shoulder. It was Detective Johnson, his face grim. "Mrs. Matthews, we need to get you out of here." Confused, I followed him out of the courtroom. In the hallway, he turned to me, his voice low. "We just got word. Judith's disappeared, and we have reason to believe she's not working alone." My blood ran cold. "What do you mean?" "There's a larger organization involved. The embezzlement. It goes way beyond just your family's company. You're in danger, Laura." Just then, a commotion erupted from the courtroom. We rushed back in to find Alex gone. The window behind the defendant's table shattered. As chaos engulfed the room, I stood frozen. The weight of what was happening crashing down on me. This wasn't just about Victor anymore. It was about a conspiracy bigger than I could have imagined, and I was at the center of it all. Detective Johnson grabbed my arm. "We need to get you to a safe house. Now." As we rushed out of the courthouse, my mind raced. How had things spiraled so out of control? I'd wanted justice for Victor, but now I was running for my life. In the car, I clutched Victor's journal to my chest. It was all I had left of him, of the truth, But as we sped through the city, sirens blaring behind us, I realized the truth might not be enough to save me. I looked out the window, the world blurring past. "What have I done?" I whispered, tears stinging my eyes. But there was no going back now. I was in too deep, and the only way out was through. As we pulled up to a nondescript building, Detective Johnson turned to me, his face grave. "Are you ready for this, Laura? Because from here on out, nothing will ever be the same." I took a deep breath, steeling myself for whatever came next. "I'm ready," I said, hoping I sounded more confident than I felt. It was time to finish what Victor had started, no matter the cost. 6 months after the courtroom chaos, I stood at the podium, facing a sea of reporters and flashing cameras. My hands trembled slightly as I gripped the edges of the stand, but my voice remained steady. "Today, I stand before you not just as Laura Matthews, but as a voice for all those who have been silenced by greed and corruption," I began. The investigation that followed Alex and Judith's escape had uncovered a web of deceit far larger than anyone had imagined. Corporate fraud, money laundering, and connections to organized crime, it all came tumbling down like a house of cards. The Matthews Corporation, once a beacon of success, was built on lies and the exploitation of honest, hard-working people, I continued. But today we reclaim what was stolen, not just money, but trust, dignity, and justice. I saw Frank in the crowd, nodding encouragingly. He had been my rock through this ordeal, helping me navigate the complex world of corporate finance and legal battles. Victor Matthews was not just my father-in-law. He was a man of integrity who tried to stop this corruption and paid for it with his life. My voice cracked slightly, but I pushed on. His final act was to entrust me with the truth, and I stand here today to honor that trust. As I spoke, I thought of the past months, the sleepless nights poring over documents, the constant fear of retribution, the moments of doubt when it all seemed too overwhelming. But I had persevered, driven by a determination I never knew I possessed. "Alex and Judith Matthews have been apprehended," I announced, a ripple of excitement passing through the crowd. "They, along with their co-conspirators, will face the full extent of the law." The news had broken just hours before. After months on the run, they had been caught trying to flee the country. It was over, truly over. "But this is not just about punishment," I continued. "It's about restoration. The Matthews Foundation, once a front for illegal activities, will be restructured. Under new leadership, it will focus on supporting victims of corporate fraud and advocating for stronger oversight in the business world." As I concluded my speech, the room erupted in applause. Reporters clamored with questions, but I stepped back, emotionally drained yet oddly exhilarated. Later that evening, I stood in Victor's old office, now mine. The weight of responsibility settled on my shoulders, but it no longer felt crushing. Instead, it was a mantle I was ready to bear. A soft knock at the door interrupted my thoughts. It was Detective Johnson. "Quite a speech, Mrs. Matthews," he said with a smile. "You've come a long way from that scared woman in the courtroom." I returned his smile. "I had good people supporting me, including you, Detective." He nodded, then his expression turned serious. "I have something for you. We found it in Judith's possession when we arrested her." He handed me a small, worn notebook. With trembling hands, I opened it. It was Victor's handwriting, dated entries from his final days. As I skimmed the pages, tears welled in my eyes. "He knew," I whispered. "He knew what they were planning, but he couldn't prove it. That's why he left everything to me." Detective Johnson squeezed my shoulder gently. "He chose well. You've done him proud, Laura." As he left, I sank into Victor's old chair, clutching the notebook to my chest. The journey had been long and painful, but I had emerged stronger, wiser, and more determined than ever. I looked out the window at the city skyline, the future stretching out before me. There was still so much work to do, so many wrongs to right, but for the first time in years I felt truly alive, truly purposeful. "We did it, Victor," I whispered to the empty room. "We brought them to justice. And I promise you, this is just the beginning." As the sun set over the city, casting a golden glow across the office, I felt a sense of peace wash over me. The past was behind me, the future uncertain but full of possibility, and I was ready to face it head-on, armed with the truth and the strength I had discovered within myself. The end of one chapter, but the beginning of so much more. The sound of shattering porcelain echoed through the house, followed by a shrill cry. "Sophia, come quickly." I closed my eyes, took a deep breath, and counted to 5 before responding. "Coming, Layla," I called, forcing a cheerful tone into my voice. As I hurried up the stairs, I couldn't help but wonder what fresh drama awaited me this time. My mother-in-law, Layla, had been living with us for 6 months now, ever since her mysterious illness had rendered her incapable of living alone. At least that's what she claimed. I found her in the guest bedroom, perched on the edge of her bed with a distressed look on her face. Shards of what used to be her favorite teacup lay scattered across the hardwood floor. "Oh, Sophia, thank goodness you're here," Layla said, her voice trembling. "I'm so sorry, dear. My hands just aren't what they used to be." I plastered on a smile. "Don't worry about it, Layla. I'll clean it up." As I bent down to gather the broken pieces, Layla continued, "I don't know what I'd do without you, Sophia. You're such a blessing." I bit my tongue to keep from saying what I really thought. Instead, I asked, "Do you need anything else while I'm here?" Layla's eyes lit up. "Actually, yes. Could you be a dear and run to the store? I'm craving those little lemon tarts from the bakery across town." I glanced at my watch. It was already 5:30 p.m., and I hadn't even started dinner. "Layla, it's rush hour. That bakery is on the other side of the city. It would take me at least an hour to get there and back." Her face fell. "Oh, I see. I just thought. Never mind. I'm sure I can manage without them." The guilt trip was coming, right on cue. I sighed, knowing I was about to cave. "All right, I'll go, but it might be a while before I'm back." Layla beamed. "You're an angel, Sophia, truly." As I drove across town, stuck in bumper-to-bumper traffic, I couldn't help but feel a twinge of resentment. This wasn't how I had imagined my life would be at 38. I had a successful career, a loving husband, and plans for the future. Now it felt like everything revolved around Layla's needs and whims. My phone buzzed with a text from Ethan. "Where are you? I'm home early." I typed back quickly, "Running an errand for your mother. Be back soon." When I finally returned home, laden with lemon tarts, I found Ethan in the kitchen, looking confused. "Hey," he said, giving me a quick kiss. "I thought you'd be home. What's all this?" I held up the bakery box. "Your mother had a craving." Ethan's brow furrowed. "You drove all the way across town during rush hour for tarts?" "She dropped her teacup and seemed upset. I thought it might cheer her up," I explained, trying to keep the frustration out of my voice. Ethan sighed. "Sophia, you don't have to do everything she asks, you know? Mom's not as helpless as she lets on." I raised an eyebrow. "Oh, and have you told her that?" Before Ethan could respond, Layla's voice floated down from upstairs. "Sophia? Ethan, is that you?" "Yes, Mom," Ethan called back. "We're down here." Layla appeared at the top of the stairs, moving slowly and gripping the railing. "Oh, good. I was worried about you, Sophia. The roads can be so dangerous at this time of day." As she made her way down, I noticed how steady her movements were, despite her supposed frailty. A seed of doubt began to take root in my mind. Layla's eyes lit up when she saw the bakery box. "Oh, you got the tarts. How wonderful. Ethan, your wife is simply the best. Don't you agree?" Ethan nodded, but I caught the flicker of uncertainty in his eyes. For the first time, I wondered if he was starting to see what I had suspected all along. As we settled in for another evening catering to Layla's every need, I made a silent promise to myself. Something had to change, and soon. I couldn't keep living like this, trapped in a life I never asked for. The question was, how far was I willing to go to reclaim my freedom? The next morning, I woke to the sound of hushed voices coming from downstairs. Curious, I crept down the stairs, careful to avoid the creaky step near the bottom. "Ethan, darling," Layla's voice drifted from the kitchen. "I'm worried about Sophia. She seems so stressed lately." I froze, straining to hear Ethan's response. "Mom, she's fine. She's just adjusting to the new situation." Layla sighed dramatically. "I just feel terrible, being such a burden on you both. Maybe it would be best if I went to a nursing home." My heart leaped at the possibility, but Ethan's response crushed that fleeting hope. "Don't be ridiculous, Mom. We're not sending you to a home. We'll figure something out." I chose that moment to make my presence known, walking into the kitchen with a forced smile. "Good morning, you two. What's going on?" Layla's face transformed instantly, a mask of cheerful innocence sliding into place. "Oh, Sophia, we were just discussing how we could make things easier for you, dear." Ethan nodded, his expression earnest. Mom thinks she's being a burden, but I assured her that's not the case. I bit back the urge to agree with Layla's assessment. Instead, I poured myself a cup of coffee and said, "Of course not. We're family after all." Layla beamed, but there was a glint in her eye that made me uneasy. "You're so kind, Sophia, but I was thinking perhaps it would be best if someone was here full-time to help me. I hate to ask, but—" I nearly choked on my coffee. "Full-time, but I have a job, Layla. We can't afford to hire a nurse." Ethan cleared his throat. "Actually, I was thinking maybe you could take a leave of absence from work, just for a little while until Mom's better." The mug slipped from my hand, shattering on the floor. Coffee splashed across the tile, but I barely noticed. "You want me to quit my job?" "Not quit," Ethan said quickly. "Just take some time off. We can manage on my salary for a while." I stared at him, disbelief and anger warring inside me. "Ethan, can I talk to you privately for a moment?" We stepped into the living room, leaving Layla in the kitchen. As soon as we were out of earshot, I hissed, "Have you lost your mind? I can't just abandon my career." Ethan ran a hand through his hair, looking torn. "It's not forever, Sophia. Mom needs us right now." "And what about what I need?" I demanded. "What about our plans, our future?" "This is temporary," Ethan insisted. "Please, Sophia, I don't know what else to do." I closed my eyes, feeling trapped. The weight of expectation and guilt pressed down on me, suffocating my protests. Finally, I whispered, "Fine, I'll do it. But this can't go on indefinitely, Ethan." He pulled me into a hug, relief evident in his voice. "Thank you. I promise we'll figure something out soon." As we returned to the kitchen, Layla looked up with wide, innocent eyes. "Is everything all right, dears?" I forced a smile. "Yes, Layla. I've decided to take some time off work to help care for you." The triumph in her eyes was unmistakable, though quickly masked by a show of concern. "Oh, Sophia, I couldn't possibly ask that of you." "It's already decided," I said, my tone leaving no room for argument. Later that day, as I called my boss to request a leave of absence, I felt a piece of my identity slipping away. My career, my independence, my dreams, all put on hold for a woman who seemed determined to control every aspect of our lives. That night, as Ethan slept peacefully beside me, I lay awake, staring at the ceiling. The realization hit me like a physical blow. I had become a prisoner in my own home, and Layla held the key. A plan began to form in my mind. If Layla wanted to play games, I could play too. But unlike her, I would be playing for keeps. As I drifted off to sleep, a small, determined smile played at the corners of my mouth. Layla had no idea what she was in for. 2 weeks into my new role as Layla's full-time caretaker, I was ready to scream. The constant demands, the manipulation, the way she monopolized every moment of my day, it was driving me to the brink of sanity. "Sophia!" Layla's voice rang out from upstairs. "I need you." I gritted my teeth, forcing myself to respond calmly. "Coming, Layla." I found her sitting at her vanity, a look of distress on her face. "Oh, Sophia, I'm having such a terrible hair day. Would you be a dear and style it for me?" I stared at her perfectly coiffed hair, disbelief washing over me. "Layla, your hair looks fine," she pouted, looking at me through the mirror. "But I have that luncheon with the ladies from church today. I want to look my best." "The luncheon isn't for 3 hours," I pointed out. "Please, Sophia, you're so good at this sort of thing." 30 minutes later, I emerged from Layla's room, my patience hanging by a thread. I needed air, space, anything to escape the suffocating presence of my mother-in-law. I was halfway down the stairs when Layla called out again. "Sophia, I've changed my mind about my outfit. Could you help me choose something else?" Something inside me snapped. "No, Layla, I can't. I'm not your personal stylist or your maid. I'm your daughter-in-law, and I deserve some respect." Silence fell, heavy and oppressive. Then I heard the soft sound of sniffling. Guilt immediately washed over me, battling with my frustration. I trudged back up the stairs, finding Layla dabbing at her eyes with a tissue. "I'm so sorry, Sophia," she whimpered. "I never meant to be a burden. Perhaps it would be best if I just went to that nursing home after all." The guilt intensified, even as a small voice in my head whispered that this was just another manipulation tactic. "No, Layla, I'm sorry. I shouldn't have snapped at you. Let's find you an outfit, okay?" As I helped Layla dress, I couldn't shake the feeling that I was losing myself in this new reality. My career, my independence, my identity, all were slipping away, replaced by an endless cycle of catering to Layla's whims. That evening, when Ethan came home, I was at my breaking point. "We need to talk," I said, pulling him into the kitchen while Layla watched her evening soaps. "What's wrong?" Ethan asked, concern etching his features. I took a deep breath. "This isn't working. Ethan, I can't keep doing this. Your mother she's taking over our lives." Ethan's brow furrowed. "Sophia, we talked about this. It's temporary. Mom needs us right now." "But for how long?" I demanded. "I've given up my job, my life. When does it end?" Before Ethan could respond, Leela's voice floated in from the living room. "Ethan, is that you, darling? Could you come here for a moment?" Ethan gave me an apologetic look. "We'll finish this conversation later, okay?" As he walked away, I felt something inside me harden. This couldn't go on. I needed to take action, to reclaim my life before it was too late. I pulled out my phone, scrolling through my contacts until I found the number I was looking for. My finger hovered over the call button as I weighed my options. If I made this call, there would be no going back. It could change everything. My relationship with Ethan, our family dynamic, maybe even our marriage. But as I heard Layla's laughter drifting in from the other room, mingling with Ethan's, I knew I had no choice. I pressed the call button, my heart pounding as I waited for an answer. When the voice on the other end picked up, I spoke quietly but firmly. "Hello, this is Sophia Williams. I'd like to schedule a consultation with a private investigator. It's about my mother-in-law. I think she might be faking her illness." As I ended the call, a mix of guilt and determination washed over me. I was taking a huge risk, but I couldn't live like this anymore. One way or another, I was going to uncover the truth about Layla, no matter the cost. The private investigator's report arrived a week later, landing in my inbox with a soft ping that belied its explosive contents. I glanced around furtively, making sure Layla was occupied with her afternoon soap operas before opening the email. As I scrolled through the document, my eyes widened in disbelief. Photos, financial records, and detailed accounts painted a picture of Layla's life that was far from the frail, helpless woman who had invaded our home. There she was, laughing with friends at a country club luncheon just days before her illness struck. Another photo showed her vigorously playing tennis. Bank statements revealed large withdrawals coinciding with her sudden need for care. But it was the last page that made my blood run cold. A copy of Ethan's father's will, with a clause I'd never known about. Layla would receive a substantial monthly allowance as long as she lived with and was cared for by family. The pieces fell into place with sickening clarity. Layla wasn't sick. She was conning us, manipulating her way into our lives for financial gain. My hands shook as I closed the laptop. Anger, betrayal, and a perverse sense of vindication warred within me. I had been right all along, but the truth was far worse than I'd imagined. "Sophia?" Layla's voice drifted from the living room. "Could you bring me some tea, dear?" I gritted my teeth, forcing myself to respond calmly. "Of course, Layla. I'll be right there." As I prepared the tea, my mind raced. Should I confront her? Tell Ethan? The weight of this knowledge pressed down on me, demanding action. I carried the tea tray into the living room, studying Layla's face as I set it down. She smiled up at me, the picture of innocent gratitude. How many times had I fallen for that act? "Thank you, darling," she said, reaching for the cup. "You know, I was just thinking about how blessed I am to have you and Ethan caring for me. I don't know what I'd do without you." Something inside me snapped. "I think you'd manage just fine, Layla. In fact, I'm sure you'd be back on the tennis court in no time." Layla's cup froze halfway to her lips, her eyes widening in shock. I don't know what you mean, Sophia." I pulled out my phone, bringing up one of the photos from the investigator's report. "Really? Because this was taken just 2 weeks before you moved in with us. You look pretty spry for someone about to become an invalid." The color drained from Layla's face. For a moment, her mask slipped, revealing a calculating coldness I'd never seen before. Then, just as quickly, it was replaced by a look of hurt confusion. "Oh, Sophia," she said, her voice trembling. "How could you think such things, after everything we've been through together?" I stood my ground, even as doubt began to creep in. Was I making a terrible mistake? "No more games, Layla. I know about the clause in the will. I know why you're really here." Layla's demeanor changed instantly. The frail, helpless act, vanished, replaced by a steely resolve. "Well," she said, her voice sharp, "I see you've done your homework, but tell me, dear, what do you plan to do with this information?" The challenge in her tone caught me off guard. I realized I hadn't thought this far ahead. I'm going to tell Ethan, of course. He deserves to know the truth." Layla laughed, a harsh, mirthless sound. "And you think he'll believe you over me? His devoted mother who raised him? Oh, Sophia, you're more naive than I thought." Her words hit me like a physical blow. She was right. I had no idea how Ethan would react. Would he believe me? Or would this drive a wedge between us, destroying our marriage? As I stood there, frozen in indecision, Layla's voice cut through my thoughts. "So, my dear daughter-in-law, what's it going to be? Are you really prepared for what happens next?" I met her gaze, seeing the challenge there, the absolute certainty that she held all the cards. In that moment, I realized the true depth of the trap I was in. This wasn't just about reclaiming my life anymore. It was about exposing a lifetime of lies and manipulation. The question hung in the air between us, demanding an answer. What was I prepared to do? As I opened my mouth to respond, I knew my next words would change everything. The tension in the house was palpable after my confrontation with Layla. We danced around each other, every interaction laced with unspoken accusations and barely concealed hostility. I hadn't told Ethan yet, the weight of my discovery pressing down on me like a physical burden. One morning, as I was preparing breakfast, Layla swept into the kitchen with an air of determination. "Sophia, dear, I've been thinking," she announced, her voice syrupy sweet. "I feel terrible about how much you've had to sacrifice for me. I think it's time we hired a professional carer." I nearly dropped the spatula I was holding, shock coursing through me. "What?" Layla smiled benevolently. "You've done so much, and I can see it's taking a toll. This way you can go back to work, and I'll have the care I need. It's a win-win, don't you think?" My mind raced. Was this a trap? A way to make me look unreasonable if I refused? Or was Layla genuinely backing down? "That's very considerate of you, Layla," I managed to say, my voice tight with suspicion. "Wonderful." Layla clapped her hands together. "I've already found the perfect agency. They can start next week." As Layla bustled out of the kitchen, I stood frozen, trying to process what had just happened. It felt like a victory, but something about it left me uneasy. True to her word, the following week saw the arrival of Sarah, a cheerful and efficient carer who quickly took over most of Layla's daily needs. I found myself with an abundance of free time, a concept that had become foreign to me over the past months. Determined to reclaim some semblance of my former life, I started job hunting. It wasn't easy. My skills were rusty, and the gap in my employment history raised eyebrows. But finally, after weeks of searching, I landed a position at a small marketing firm. The pay was less than half of what I'd earned before, but it was a start. As I settled into my new routine, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. Layla seemed almost too accommodating, too willing to let me regain my independence. The Layla I knew would never relinquish control so easily. My suspicions were confirmed one evening when I overheard a conversation between Layla and Sarah. I had come home early, a migraine forcing me to leave work, and their voices drifted up from the living room. "You're doing wonderfully, Sarah," Layla was saying. "Sophia suspects nothing. Soon we'll be able to move to the next phase of our plan." Sarah's response was too low for me to hear, but Layla's chilling laugh rang out clearly. "Oh, don't worry about Ethan. He's always been easy to manipulate. Once Sophia's out of the picture, everything will fall into place." I stumbled back, my heart pounding. The migraine forgotten, adrenaline coursed through my veins. Layla wasn't backing down. She was escalating her game, and somehow she had enlisted Sarah in her schemes. My mind raced with possibilities. What was Layla planning? How deep did this deception go? And most terrifyingly, what did she mean by getting me out of the picture? I retreated to my bedroom, locking the door behind me. My hands shook as I pulled out my phone, scrolling through my contacts. I needed help, but who could I trust? Ethan was still under Layla's spell, and involving the authorities without concrete evidence seemed risky. As I sat there, paralyzed by indecision, a notification popped up on my phone. It was a reminder for Ethan's and my anniversary dinner, scheduled for the following evening. A plan began to form in my mind, desperate and risky, but potentially our only chance. I took a deep breath, steeling myself for what I was about to do. Tomorrow night at dinner I would lay all my cards on the table. I would tell Ethan everything. The private investigator's report, the overheard conversation, all of it. It was a gamble that could cost me my marriage, but the alternative was unthinkable. As I began to prepare for the most important dinner of my life, one thought echoed through my mind. This ends tomorrow, one way or another. My heart raced as I prepared for our anniversary dinner. The weight of the hidden camera in my purse felt like a ticking bomb. I had made the decision to record everything, hoping to gather irrefutable evidence of Layla's deception. Ethan and I arrived at the restaurant, the tension between us palpable. As we sat down, I took a deep breath, steeling myself for what was to come. "Ethan," I began, my voice trembling slightly, "there's something I need to tell you about your mother." His brow furrowed. "Sophia, not this again. Can't we just enjoy our anniversary without?" "No," I interrupted firmly. "This can't wait. I have proof that Layla has been lying to us." I pulled out my phone, showing him the photos from the private investigator. Ethan's face paled as he scrolled through them, disbelief etched across his features. This can't be real," he muttered. "It is," I insisted. "And there's more. I overheard her talking to Sarah. They're planning something, Ethan. Something to get rid of me." Ethan's head snapped up, his eyes wide with shock. "What are you saying?" Before I could respond, my phone buzzed with a text from our neighbor. "Emergency at home. Come back immediately." We rushed back, my mind racing with possibilities. As we pulled into the driveway, I saw Layla on the front porch, tears streaming down her face. "Oh, thank goodness you're here," she cried. "There was a break-in. They took everything." We entered the house, finding it in disarray, but something felt off. The chaos seemed staged. As Layla sobbed dramatically, recounting the supposed break-in, I noticed Ethan's expression hardening. He had seen it too. "Mom," he said quietly, "stop. Just stop." Layla froze, her tears suddenly drying up. "What do you mean, darling?" Ethan held up my phone, still displaying the damning photos. "Explain this." The change in Layla was instantaneous and chilling. Her vulnerable facade melted away, replaced by a cold, calculating look. "Well," she said, her voice icy, "I see Sophia has been busy. I underestimated you, dear." "Why?" Ethan demanded. "Why would you do this to us?" Layla laughed, a harsh, bitter sound. "Why? Because I deserve it. I spent years caring for your father, putting my life on hold. This is my reward." As she spoke, I discreetly activated the hidden camera in my purse, capturing every word. "But the illness, the constant demands," I pressed. "Was it all an act?" "Of course it was," Layla sneered. "And you both fell for it, hook, line, and sinker. It was almost too easy." Ethan's face crumpled in pain and betrayal. "Get out," he whispered. "Excuse me?" Layla's eyes narrowed dangerously. "Get out," Ethan shouted, his voice raw with emotion. "You have 1 week to leave. After that, I'm cutting you off completely." Layla's composure cracked, panic flashing in her eyes. "You can't do that. I'm your mother." "No," Ethan said firmly. "You're a liar and a manipulator. We're done." As Layla's protests grew more frantic, I felt a wave of relief wash over me. It was finally over. But then Layla's eyes locked onto mine, filled with a hatred so intense it made me step back. "This isn't over," she hissed. "You'll regret this, Sophia. I promise you that." As she stormed upstairs, slamming doors behind her, I turned to Ethan. His face was a mask of pain and confusion. "I'm so sorry," I whispered, reaching for his hand. He pulled away, his voice hollow. "I need some time. It's too much." As Ethan walked out, leaving me alone in the wreckage of our living room, the full weight of what had just happened crashed down on me. We had won, but at what cost? The house felt eerily quiet, the aftermath of our confrontation hanging heavy in the air. Upstairs, I could hear Layla moving around, no doubt plotting her next move. I sank onto the couch, exhausted and overwhelmed. The battle was over, but I had a sinking feeling that the war was just beginning. As I sat there, surrounded by the remnants of Layla's staged break-in, one question echoed in my mind. What would she do next? The week following Layla's exposure was a whirlwind of tension and barely contained chaos. Ethan had retreated into himself, spending long hours at work and barely speaking when he was home. I felt like I was walking on eggshells, torn between relief that the truth was out and fear of what was to come. Layla, for her part, oscillated between fits of rage and bouts of theatrical despair. One moment she'd be hurling accusations and threats. the next sobbing and begging for forgiveness. It was exhausting and nerve-wracking, never knowing which version of her we'd encounter. On the eve of her departure, I was in the kitchen preparing dinner when I heard raised voices from the living room. I crept closer, my heart pounding. "You can't do this to me, Ethan," Layla wailed. "I'm your mother. Where am I supposed to go?" Ethan's voice was strained but firm. "We've been through this, Mom. You lied to us, manipulated us. You can't stay here anymore." "It's all Sophia's fault," Layla spat. "She turned you against me. She never understood our bond." I flinched at the venom in her words, but Ethan's response made my heart swell. "No, Mom, this is on you. Sophia has been nothing but patient and kind, even when you were treating her horribly. It's over." Suddenly, Layla's tone changed, becoming sickly sweet. "Darling, please. I know I made mistakes, but can't we start over? I'll do better, I promise. Just give me one more chance." There was a long pause, and for a terrifying moment, I thought Ethan might cave. Then he spoke, his voice heavy with finality. "No, Mom, it's too late for that. You need to leave tomorrow, as we agreed." I heard Layla's sharp intake of breath, followed by the sound of breaking glass. Rushing into the living room, I found Ethan standing amid the shattered remains of a vase, Layla nowhere in sight. "Are you okay?" I asked, reaching for him. Ethan nodded, looking dazed. "She just lost it, threw the vase and stormed upstairs." We spent the next hour cleaning up the mess, the silence between us thick with unspoken emotions. As we finished, Ethan finally met my eyes. "I'm sorry," he said softly, "for not believing you sooner, for putting you through all this." I felt tears welling up. "It's okay. We're going to get through this together." Just as we embraced, a blood-curdling scream echoed from upstairs. We raced up to find Layla sprawled at the bottom of the attic stairs, clutching her leg. "Help me," she cried. "I've fallen. I think it's broken." Ethan immediately moved to help her, but I held him back, suspicion flaring. "Wait," I whispered. "Remember the last time?" He hesitated, conflict clear on his face. Layla's cries grew more insistent. "Please, I'm in agony. Call an ambulance." I stepped forward, my voice steady. "Layla, we're going to call for help, but first I want you to stand up." Her eyes widened in shock, then narrowed in fury. "How dare you? Can't you see I'm injured?" "Stand up," I repeated firmly, "or we'll assume this is just another act." For a moment the room was silent, except for Layla's labored breathing. Then, slowly, incredulously, she got to her feet, her supposedly broken leg bearing her weight just fine. "You heartless bitch," she snarled at me. "You've ruined everything." Before I could react, she lunged at me, her hands clawing for my face. I stumbled backward, nearly falling down the stairs myself. Ethan intervened, pulling his mother away. "That's it," he said, his voice shaking with anger. "You're leaving now. Tonight." As Ethan dragged Layla away to pack her bags, I leaned against the wall, my legs weak with relief and residual fear. We had won, but the victory felt hollow. Looking at Ethan's pained expression as he argued with Layla down the hall, I realized we still had a long way to go. The immediate threat was nearly over, but the emotional fallout was just beginning. As I heard Layla's shrill protests and Ethan's weary responses, I steeled myself for one last confrontation. Tomorrow our house would be free of Layla's presence, but would our lives ever truly be free of her influence? Only time would tell. 6 months after Layla's dramatic exit from our lives, I stood in our newly redecorated living room, taking in the peace that had finally settled over our home. The last traces of Layla's presence had been erased, replaced by colors and furnishings that Ethan and I had chosen together. As I sipped my morning coffee, my phone buzzed with a notification. It was a message from Claire, a family friend who had once been close to Layla. I opened it with trepidation, half expecting another plea on Layla's behalf. Instead, I found myself staring at a photo that made my blood run cold. It showed Layla, looking haggard and unkempt, working behind the counter of a dingy convenience store. The caption read, "Karma's a bitch, isn't it?" I felt a complex mix of emotions wash over me, satisfaction, pity, and a lingering anger that surprised me with its intensity. Layla had faced the consequences of her actions, stripped of the comfortable life she had schemed so hard to maintain. "What is it?" Ethan's voice startled me. He had come up behind me, peering over my shoulder at the phone. I handed it to him wordlessly, watching his face as he took in the image. His expression hardened, then softened, a myriad of emotions playing across his features. I never wanted this for her, he said quietly. Despite everything, she's still my mother. I nodded, understanding his conflict. I know, but she made her choices, Ethan. We can't take responsibility for that. He set the phone down, pulling me into a tight embrace. You're right, it's still hard sometimes. As we stood there holding each other, I realized how far we'd come. The strain that Layla had placed on our marriage had nearly broken us, but we'd emerged stronger, more united than ever before. The doorbell rang, interrupting our moment. I opened it to find a courier holding a thick envelope. Delivery for Sophia and Ethan Williams, he announced. I signed for the package, my curiosity piqued. As soon as the door closed, I tore it open, Ethan looking on with equal interest. Inside was a legal document, its language dense and official. But the gist of it was clear. Layla was relinquishing all claims to Ethan's father's estate, including the monthly allowance she had manipulated us for. I don't understand, Ethan murmured, reading over my shoulder. Why would she do this now? Attached to the document was a handwritten note. With trembling hands, I unfolded it and read aloud. Sophia and Ethan, I know these words can never undo the harm I've caused. My actions were inexcusable, driven by greed and a misguided sense of entitlement. Losing everything, my home, my status, and most importantly, my family, has forced me to confront the person I've become. I don't expect forgiveness, nor do I deserve it. But I hope that by relinquishing these final ties, I can offer you both the clean break you deserve. Live your lives free from my shadow. Be happy and know that I truly regret the pain I've caused. Layla. As I finished reading, I looked up to see tears in Ethan's eyes. My own vision blurred as the weight of Layla's words sank in. Do you think she means it? I asked softly. Ethan took a deep breath. I don't know, but I think this is the closest to an apology we're ever going to get. We sat in silence for a long moment, processing this unexpected turn of events. Finally, I spoke. What do you want to do? Ethan met my gaze, his eyes clear and determined. I want to move forward, with you. We've given her enough of our lives already. I nodded, feeling a sense of finality settle over me. Together, then? As we embraced once more, I felt the last lingering traces of tension leave my body. The ordeal with Layla had tested us to our limits, but we had survived. More than that, we had reclaimed our lives and our relationship. Looking around our home, our sanctuary, I knew that whatever challenges the future held, Ethan and I would face them as a united front. We had weathered the storm of Layla's manipulation and emerged stronger for it. As the morning sun streamed through the windows, casting a warm glow over our renewed life together, I felt a profound sense of peace. The chapter with Layla was finally truly closed. And our story, Ethan's and mine, was just beginning anew. The train ticket fell from Paul's jacket pocket like a death sentence. I stood frozen in our bedroom, staring at the innocuous slip of paper that threatened to unravel my entire world. Chicago, next Friday, the day of Ellen's high school graduation. My hands trembled as I picked it up, my mind racing. There had to be an explanation. Paul couldn't. Susan, you home? His voice echoed from downstairs, startling me out of my daze. I quickly shoved the ticket into my pocket. Up here, I called back, trying to keep my voice steady. Paul appeared in the doorway, his smile faltering as he took in my expression. Everything okay? I forced a smile. Just tired. How was work? He shrugged, loosening his tie. Same old, meetings, deadlines, you know how it is. I nodded, my throat tight. Ellen called earlier. She's staying at Jess's to work on their science project. Again? Paul frowned. She's been spending a lot of time there lately. She's 15, Paul. It's normal. He grunted, heading for the shower. As the water started running, I pulled out the ticket again, studying it. Round trip, first class. My stomach churned. I needed answers. Grabbing Paul's phone from the nightstand, I hesitated for a moment before entering his passcode. 1985. The year we met, at least that hadn't changed. My fingers shook as I scrolled through his messages. Work emails, group chats with friends, and then my heart stopped. A conversation with someone named M. No last name, just an initial. Can't wait to see you in Chicago, handsome. It's been too long. Missing you already. These secret meetings aren't enough anymore. I love you. When are you going to leave her? The phone slipped from my grasp, clattering to the floor. Paul's voice called out from the bathroom. Everything all right out there? I swallowed hard. Just dropped something. Don't worry about it. 15 years of marriage, 15 years of loving Ellen as my own. All of it, a lie? The shower shut off, and I heard Paul moving around in the bathroom. I had to pull myself together. Taking a deep breath, I picked up his phone and placed it back on the nightstand. Paul emerged, a towel wrapped around his waist. "Hey, I was thinking we could go out for dinner tonight. That new Italian place downtown?" I nodded mechanically. "Sounds nice." He frowned, stepping closer. "Are you sure you're okay? You seem off." For a moment, I considered confronting him right then and there, demanding answers, screaming, throwing things. But Ellen's face flashed in my mind. Her graduation was in a week. I couldn't ruin that for her. "I'm fine," I lied, plastering on a smile. "Just worried about Ellen. She seems so distant lately." Paul's expression softened. "She's a teenager, Sue. It's normal. Remember how you were telling me earlier?" I bit back a bitter laugh. Of course I remembered. I remembered everything about our life together. Every moment, every promise. Did any of it matter to him? "You're right," I said, standing up. "I'll go start the car. Meet you downstairs in 10. He nodded, already turning away to get dressed. As I left the room, my mind was racing. I needed a plan. I needed proof. Most of all, I needed to protect Ellen. In the car, I pulled out my phone and dialed a number I never thought I'd use. "Hello, is this Hawkins Investigations? I need your help." As Paul climbed into the passenger seat, I ended the call. He smiled at me, oblivious to the storm brewing inside me. "Ready to go, honey?" I nodded, my grip tightening on the steering wheel. Ready as I'll ever be. I never imagined I'd be a mother at 35, let alone to a child who wasn't biologically mine. But life has a way of surprising you, doesn't it? The day I met Ellen, she was all gangly limbs and wary eyes, hiding behind Paul's legs. I knelt down, my heart pounding. "Hi, Ellen. I'm Susan. It's nice to meet you." She peered at me, her small face scrunched in concentration. "Do you like unicorns?" I laughed, relief washing over me. "I love unicorns. Do you want to show me yours?" As Ellen dragged me to her room, chattering about her stuffed animal collection, I caught Paul's eye. He smiled, mouthing, "Thank you." But it wasn't always that easy. The first time Ellen called me Mom, I froze, panic rising in my chest. Later that night, I confessed my fears to Paul. "What if I'm not good enough?" I whispered, tears threatening to spill. "What if I mess her up?" Paul pulled me close, his voice steady. "You're already an amazing mother, Sue. Ellen adores you." "But what if?" He cut me off with a kiss. "No what ifs. We're in this together, remember?" I nodded, clinging to his words like a lifeline. Together, always. Now, as I sat in the parking lot of Hawkins Investigations, that memory felt like a knife twisting in my gut. Together. What a joke. The door opened, and a gruff-looking man approached my car. "Mrs. Thompson?" I nodded, stepping out. "Mr. Hawkins?" He grunted in affirmation. "Got your message. Infidelity case, right?" I flinched at the bluntness. "Yes, I need proof." "Always do in these cases. Come on in, we'll talk details." Inside his cluttered office, I perched on the edge of a worn leather chair, feeling like I was in a bad noir film. Hawkins settled behind his desk, pulling out a notepad. "Tell me everything you know." I took a deep breath, recounting the train ticket, the text messages, Paul's recent late nights at the office. With each word, the reality of my situation sank in deeper. Hawkins nodded, scribbling notes. "Classic signs. Don't worry, Mrs. Thompson, we'll get you the evidence you need." As I left his office, my phone buzzed. A text from Ellen. "Mom, can we talk when you get home? It's important." My heart raced. Did she know? Had she noticed something off with Paul, too? I rushed home, finding Ellen pacing in the living room. She looked up as I entered, her eyes red-rimmed. "Honey, what's wrong?" She hesitated, then blurted out, "I think Dad's cheating on you." The world tilted on its axis. I stumbled to the couch, sinking down. "What makes you say that?" Ellen sat beside me, her voice trembling. "I overheard him on the phone last night. He was talking about meeting someone in Chicago, and he said he loved her." I pulled her close, my mind reeling. "Oh, sweetheart, I'm so sorry you had to hear that." She looked up at me, her eyes wide. "You knew?" I nodded, my throat tight. "I just found out yesterday. I was trying to figure out how to tell you." Ellen's face crumpled, and she buried her head in my shoulder, sobbing. I held her, my own tears falling silently. After a while, she pulled back, wiping her eyes. "What are we going to do?" The question hung in the air, heavy with implications. What were we going to do? How could we salvage our family from this betrayal? Before I could answer, the front door opened. Paul's voice called out, "I'm home. Where is everyone?" Ellen and I locked eyes, panic mirrored in our expressions. In that moment, I made a decision. No more secrets, no more lies. "We're in here," I called back, my voice steadier than I felt. "We need to talk." As Paul's footsteps approached, I squeezed Ellen's hand. Whatever happened next, we'd face it together. Mother and daughter, united against the storm. The tension in the room was thick enough to cut with a knife as Paul entered. His easy smile faltered when he saw our faces. "What's going on?" he asked, his eyes darting between Ellen and me. I took a deep breath. "Paul, we need to talk about Chicago." The color drained from his face. "What about Chicago?" Ellen stood up, her voice trembling but determined. "We know, Dad. We know about her." Paul's facade crumbled. He sank into a chair, head in his hands. I can explain." "Save it," I snapped, years of pent-up frustration bubbling to the surface. "How long, Paul? How long have you been lying to us?" He looked up, his eyes pleading. "It's not what you think. Marion is just—" "Marion," Ellen interrupted, her voice cracking. "You're on a first-name basis with your mistress?" Paul flinched as if he'd been slapped. "Ellen, honey, please." "Don't honey me," she spat. "I trusted you. We both did." I placed a hand on Ellen's shoulder, steadying her. "We want the truth, Paul. All of it." What followed was a painful confession. Marion was a colleague, a friendship that had turned into something more. It had been going on for months. Each word was like a dagger to my heart. "I never meant for this to happen," Paul finished lamely. I laughed bitterly. "But it did happen, Paul, and on Ellen's graduation day of all times." Ellen's head snapped up. "What?" I hesitated, realizing my mistake too late. "The Chicago trip? It's scheduled for your graduation day." The look of betrayal on Ellen's face was devastating. She turned to Paul, her voice barely above a whisper. "You were going to miss my graduation for her?" Paul reached out, but Ellen recoiled. "I'm sorry, Save it," she said, echoing my earlier words. "I'm going to Jess's." Before either of us could stop her, Ellen stormed out, the front door slamming behind her. I rounded on Paul. "Are you happy now? Is this what you wanted?" He slumped further into his chair. "Of course not. I love you both. I got lost." "Lost?" I scoffed. "You're a grown man, Paul, not a toddler in a supermarket. You made choices that hurt your family." Paul nodded, defeated. "What happens now?" I stood up, suddenly feeling every one of my years. "Now I'm going to find our daughter, and when I get back, I expect you to be gone." "Gone?" Paul's head shot up. "You're kicking me out?" "Consider it a trial separation," I said, my voice cold. "I need time to think, and Ellen needs space. You owe us that much." As I grabbed my keys and headed for the door, Paul called out, "Susan, wait. I'm sorry. I'll do anything to fix this." I paused, my hand on the doorknob. Without turning, I said, "Sometimes, Paul, sorry isn't enough." The drive to Jess's house was a blur. My mind raced with everything that had happened. How had we gotten here? When did our happy family start to crumble? I pulled up to the curb, spotting Ellen sitting on the front steps. She looked up as I approached, her eyes red and puffy. "Hey," I said softly, sitting beside her. "Hey," she mumbled back. We sat in silence for a moment, the weight of the day pressing down on us. Finally, Ellen spoke. "What are we going to do, Mom?" I wrapped an arm around her shoulders. "I don't know, sweetheart, but we'll figure it out together." She leaned into me, her voice small. "I hate him." "No, you don't," I said gently. "You're hurt and angry, and that's okay. But hate will only hurt you in the long run." Ellen nodded, sniffling. "I just want things to go back to normal." I kissed the top of her head, my heart breaking for her. "I know, baby. Me too." As we sat there, the sun setting behind us, I realized that normal was a thing of the past. Our lives had been irrevocably changed, but looking at Ellen, I knew one thing for certain. Whatever came next, we'd face it as a team. "Come on," I said, standing up. "Let's go home." Ellen hesitated. Is he still there?" I shook my head. "No, it's just us now." She took my hand, squeezing it tight. "Okay, let's go home." As we walked to the car, I felt a mix of emotions, anger, sadness, fear, but underneath it all, a small spark of hope. We'd weathered this storm. Whatever came next, we'd weather that too, together. The days following Paul's departure blurred together in a haze of sleepless nights and tense conversations. Ellen retreated further into herself, barely leaving her room except for school. I threw myself into work, desperate for any distraction from the gaping hole in our lives. It was a Wednesday afternoon when I finally dragged myself home early, determined to connect with Ellen. The house was quiet as I entered, but I heard muffled voices coming from upstairs. My heart leapt. Was Ellen finally talking to a friend? As I climbed the stairs, the voices grew clearer. One was definitely Ellen's, but the other... My blood ran cold. Paul. I burst into Ellen's room without knocking. They both jumped, guilty expressions on their faces. Paul was perched on the edge of Ellen's bed, while she sat cross-legged, clutching a pillow to her chest. "What the hell is going on here?" I demanded, my voice shaking with anger. Paul stood up, hands raised placatingly. "Susan, please. I was just talking to Ellen about..." "About what?" I interrupted. "About how you betrayed our family? About how you were planning to abandon your daughter on her graduation day?" Ellen flinched at my words, and I immediately regretted my harshness. But the sight of Paul in our home, acting like nothing had changed, ignited a fury I couldn't contain. "Mom," Ellen said softly, "Dad was just..." "No," I cut her off. "Whatever he was just doing, it stops now. Paul, get out." He hesitated, looking between Ellen and me. "Susan, we need to talk about this, as a family." I laughed bitterly. "Family? You gave up that right when you decided to start a new one with Marion." Paul's face paled. "How did you?" "It doesn't matter how I know," I snapped. "What matters is that you're here, in our home, trying to manipulate our daughter." "I'm not manipulating anyone," Paul protested. "Ellen called me. She wanted to talk." I turned to Ellen, hurt and betrayal washing over me. "Is that true?" She nodded, not meeting my eyes. I wanted to understand why." My anger deflated, replaced by a deep, aching sadness. "Oh, honey, I'm so sorry." Paul took a step towards me. "Susan, please, let's sit down and talk about this rationally." Something in me snapped. "Rationally? You want to talk rationally about how you destroyed our family? About how you lied and cheated and..." I stopped abruptly as a wave of dizziness washed over me. The room spun, and I grabbed the doorframe for support. "Mom?" Ellen's voice sounded far away. "Are you okay?" I tried to answer, but the words wouldn't come. The last thing I saw was Paul and Ellen's panicked faces as the world went black. I woke up in a hospital bed, the steady beep of monitors filling the room. Ellen was curled up in a chair beside me, her face tear-stained even in sleep. Paul was nowhere to be seen. A nurse entered, smiling when she saw I was awake. "Welcome back, Mrs. Thompson. How are you feeling?" "What happened?" I croaked, my throat dry. "You fainted," she explained gently. "Your blood pressure was dangerously high. The doctor wants to run some tests, but it seems the stress of your situation may have contributed." I closed my eyes, shame washing over me. I'd let Paul's betrayal consume me so completely that I'd neglected my own health, and worse, I'd scared Ellen. As if on cue, Ellen stirred, her eyes widening when she saw me awake. "Mom, you're okay." She threw herself into my arms, and I held her tight, breathing in the familiar scent of her shampoo. "I'm so sorry, sweetheart. I'm okay now." Ellen pulled back, wiping her eyes. "Dad's in the waiting room. He's been here all night." I tensed, torn between gratitude for his concern and anger at his presence. But looking at Ellen's hopeful face, I realized I had a choice to make. I could let my bitterness towards Paul poison our family further, or I could find a way to move forward, for Ellen's sake and for my own. Taking a deep breath, I squeezed Ellen's hand. "Can you ask him to come in? I think it's time we all talked." As Ellen nodded and hurried out, I steeled myself for the conversation ahead. Whatever happened next, one thing was clear. Things couldn't go on as they had been. It was time for a change, and I was ready to face it head on. The hospital room felt suffocating as Paul entered, his face a mask of concern and guilt. Ellen squeezed my hand before slipping out, leaving us alone. "Susan," Paul began, his voice cracking, "I'm so sorry. I never meant for any of this to happen." I held up a hand, silencing him. "Save it, Paul. I didn't ask you here for apologies." He nodded, sinking into the chair Ellen had vacated. "Then why?" I took a deep breath, steeling myself. "I need to know everything. No more lies, no more half-truths. I deserve that much." Paul's shoulders slumped. "You're right. You do." What followed was a painful confession that shook me to my core. Marion wasn't just a fling. They'd been seeing each other for over a year. They'd met at a conference in Chicago and had been carrying on their affair ever since. "We never meant to fall in love," Paul said, his eyes pleading for understanding. The word love hit me like a physical blow. "Love?" I spat. You destroy our family and call it love? Paul flinched. I know it's not fair. I know I've hurt you both terribly, but I can't change how I feel. I closed my eyes, fighting back tears. And Ellen's graduation? You were really going to miss that for her? He had the decency to look ashamed. I wasn't thinking straight. Marion had surprised me with tickets to a show in Chicago. I didn't realize the dates conflicted until later. And you chose her, I said flatly. Paul nodded, unable to meet my gaze. I'm sorry. We sat in silence for a moment, the weight of his betrayal hanging heavy between us. Finally, I spoke. I want a divorce. He nodded again, unsurprised. I understand. I'll give you whatever you want. The house, full custody of Ellen. Ellen isn't a bargaining chip, I snapped. She's our daughter. Or have you forgotten that in your new life with Marion? Paul's face crumpled. Of course not. I love Ellen more than anything. I don't know how to fix this. You can't fix it, Paul, I said, my voice softening despite myself. Some things, once broken, can't be put back together. As if on cue, there was a knock at the door. Ellen peeked in, her face anxious. Is everything okay? I forced a smile. Come in, sweetheart. We were just talking. Ellen entered hesitantly, looking between us. About what? Paul and I exchanged a glance. It was time for the hardest conversation of all. Honey, I began gently, your father and I have decided to get a divorce. Ellen's face fell, but she didn't look surprised. Because of Marion? Paul started. You know about Marion? She nodded, her voice small. I overheard you on the phone once. I didn't want to believe it, but my heart broke for her. Oh, Ellen, I'm so sorry you've been carrying this alone. She shrugged, trying to appear nonchalant despite the tears in her eyes. It's okay. I kind of figured this was coming. Paul reached out to her, but she stepped back. Ellen, please. I know I've messed up, but I still love you. That will never change. Ellen's face hardened. If you loved us, you wouldn't have done this. The room fell silent, the weight of her words hanging in the air. I realized then that it wasn't just my marriage that was broken. Paul's relationship with Ellen might be irreparably damaged too. As I watched them, father and daughter, unable to bridge the chasm between them, I knew I had to make a decision. Not just for myself, but for Ellen. We couldn't go on like this, trapped in a limbo of hurt and resentment. Paul, I said, my voice steady despite the turmoil inside me. I think it's best if you move out. Permanently. He nodded, resigned. I understand. I'll start looking for a place tomorrow. Ellen's shoulders relaxed slightly, and I knew I'd made the right choice. As Paul left the room, promising to visit again soon, I pulled Ellen close. We're going to be okay, I whispered, hoping I sounded more confident than I felt. It's just you and me now, kid. We'll figure this out together. As Ellen clung to me, I silently vowed to do whatever it took to protect her and rebuild our lives. The road ahead would be difficult, but we'd face it as a team. Mother and daughter, against the world. The days after my hospital stay passed in a blur of legal meetings and hushed conversations. Paul moved out quietly, leaving behind a house full of memories and a daughter who refused to speak to him. I threw myself into work and caring for Ellen, desperate to maintain some semblance of normalcy. It was a rainy Tuesday when everything came to a head. I was in my home office, poring over divorce papers, when I heard the front door slam. Ellen's footsteps thundered up the stairs, followed by the sound of her bedroom door slamming shut. Alarmed, I rushed to check on her. Ellen, honey, what's wrong? No response. I knocked gently. Ellen, please, talk to me. The door flew open, revealing Ellen's tear-stained face. I saw them, as she choked out. My heart sank. Saw who? Dad and her Marion. Ellen spat the name like a curse. They were at the mall, holding hands, laughing like nothing was wrong. I felt like I'd been punched in the gut. Oh, sweetheart, I'm so sorry. Ellen's face crumpled. How could he do this to us, Mom? How could he just replace us? I pulled her into a tight hug, my own tears threatening to fall. I don't know, baby. I wish I had answers for you. We stood there for a long moment by clinging to each other. Finally, Ellen pulled away, wiping her eyes. I need to tell you something. The seriousness in her voice made me pause. What is it? She took a deep breath. I've known about Dad's affair for a while, longer than I let on. I felt the floor shift beneath me. What? How long? A few months, Ellen admitted eyes. I found some texts on his phone. I didn't know how to tell you. My mind reeled. All those times Ellen had been distant, locked away in her room. She'd been carrying this burden alone. "Oh, Ellen," I breathed. "Why didn't you say something?" She shrugged, looking small and vulnerable. "I thought if I ignored it, maybe it would go away. Maybe Dad would realize what he was risking and stop." My heart broke for her. "Sweetheart, this isn't your fault. None of this is your responsibility." Ellen's eyes flashed with sudden anger. "But it is. I'm the reason you stayed with him for so long. If I hadn't been here, you could have left years ago." I grabbed her shoulders, forcing her to look at me. "Listen to me, Ellen. You are the best thing that ever happened to me. You're not the reason I stayed. You're the reason I found the strength to leave." She blinked, surprised. "Really?" I nodded, cupping her face in my hands. "Really, you and me, we're a team. No matter what happens with your dad, that will never change." Ellen's lip trembled. "Promise?" "I promise," I said firmly. "Now, how about we order some pizza and have a movie night? Just the two of us?" For the first time in weeks, Ellen smiled. "Can we get extra cheese?" I laughed, feeling a weight lift from my shoulders. "Extra cheese it is!" As we settled onto the couch, surrounded by comfort food and cheesy rom-coms, I felt a surge of determination. We'd been through hell, but we'd come out stronger. Whatever challenges lay ahead, we'd face them together. Just as the movie was reaching its climax, my phone buzzed. A text from Paul. "We need to talk. It's important." I stared at the screen, my stomach churning. "What now? Haven't we been through enough?" Ellen noticed my expression. "What's wrong?" I hesitated, then showed her the text. Her face hardened. "Are you going to meet him?" I took a deep breath, weighing my options. On one hand, I was done with Paul's drama. On the other, if it was truly important. "What do you think I should do?" I asked Ellen, realizing in that moment that her opinion mattered more than anyone else's. She thought for a moment, then squared her shoulders. "I think we should hear him out, together." I nodded, feeling a mix of pride and apprehension. "Okay, together it is." As I typed out a response to Paul, I couldn't shake the feeling that we were standing on the edge of something big. Whatever news he had, whatever challenges lay ahead, one thing was certain. Ellen and I would face it as a united front. The real test of our strength was about to begin. The coffee shop buzzed with quiet conversation, but I barely noticed. My eyes were fixed on the door, waiting for Paul to arrive. Ellen sat beside me, her hand clasped tightly in mine. "We can still leave," I whispered, giving her one last chance to back out. She shook her head, jaw set. "No, we need to hear what he has to say." The bell above the door chimed, and Paul walked in. My breath caught in my throat. He looked different. Tired, yes, but there was something else. A nervousness I'd never seen in him before. He spotted us and made his way over, hesitating before sitting down. "Thank you for meeting me, both of you." Ellen remained silent, her grip on my hand tightening. "What's this about, Paul?" I asked, cutting to the chase. He took a deep breath. "Marion's pregnant." The words hit me like a physical blow. Ellen gasped beside me, her free hand flying to her mouth. How far along?" I managed to choke out. 3 months, Paul said, his eyes pleading for understanding. "I only found out last week. I wanted to tell you both in person." Ellen's voice was barely above a whisper. "You're going to have another baby?" Paul nodded, his eyes filling with tears. "I know this changes everything. I'm so sorry." I felt numb, my mind racing. A baby. Paul and Marion were having a baby. Ellen would have a half-sibling. The family I thought we had was shattering even further. "What does this mean for us?" I asked, my voice steadier than I felt. "For the divorce?" Paul ran a hand through his hair. I don't know. Marion wants me to move in with her, to be there for the baby." Ellen stood up abruptly, her chair scraping against the floor. "I can't do this," she choked out before running towards the restroom. I started to follow, but Paul caught my arm. "Susan, wait, there's more." I turned back, anger flaring. What more could there possibly be? He swallowed hard. "Marion's job is transferring her to New York. She wants me to go with her." The world tilted on its axis. "New York? You're moving across the country?" Paul nodded, looking miserable. "I haven't decided yet. I don't want to leave Ellen, but you have a new family now," I finished bitterly. He flinched. "It's not like that. I love Ellen. I love you both. I don't know what to do." I laughed humorlessly. "That seems to be a recurring theme with you, Paul." Before he could respond, Ellen returned, her eyes red-rimmed but her face set in determination. "I heard everything," she said, her voice surprisingly calm. And I've made a decision. We both turned to her, surprised. I want to live with Mom full-time, Ellen continued. No shared custody, no visitation. I don't want to see you anymore, Dad. Paul's face crumpled. Ellen, please, I know I've messed up. But... No, Ellen cut him off. You made your choice. Now I'm making mine. I felt a surge of pride mixed with heartbreak. My little girl so strong in the face of such pain. Paul looked at me, desperation in his eyes. Susan, please, talk to her. I shook my head. This is Ellen's decision. I support her completely. He slumped in his chair, defeated. What happens now? I stood up, pulling Ellen close. Now, we finish the divorce. You go to New York with Marion and your new baby. And Ellen and I, we move on. As we walked out of the coffee shop, leaving Paul behind, I felt a strange mix of emotions. Anger, sadness, but also relief. The uncertainty was over. We had a clear path forward. Ellen squeezed my hand. Are we going to be okay, Mom? I looked down at her, this brave, resilient girl who had become the center of my world. Yes, sweetheart, we're going to be more than okay. As we stepped out into the sunlight, I felt a weight lift from my shoulders. The road ahead wouldn't be easy, but we'd face it together. Mother and daughter against the world. The real journey was just beginning. The morning of Ellen's graduation dawned bright and clear, a stark contrast to the turmoil of the past few months. As I helped Ellen into her gown, I couldn't help but marvel at the young woman she'd become. You ready for this? I asked, smoothing down her collar. She nodded, a mix of excitement and nervousness in her eyes. As ready as I'll ever be. We'd moved into our new apartment just a week ago, boxes still scattered around. It was smaller than our old house, but it felt like home. Our home. As we drove to the school, Ellen fidgeted with her cap. Do you think Dad will show up? I gripped the steering wheel tighter. I don't know, honey, but whatever happens, I'm here. The auditorium was packed when we arrived. I spotted Paul almost immediately, standing awkwardly near the back. Our eyes met, and he gave a hesitant wave. Ellen tensed beside me. You don't have to talk to him if you don't want to, I whispered. She squared her shoulders. No, I think I need to. I watched as Ellen approached Paul. They spoke briefly, Paul's face a mix of regret and pride. When Ellen returned, her eyes were dry but determined. Everything okay? I asked. She nodded. Yeah, I told him I'm glad he came, but that doesn't change anything. Pride swelled in my chest, my brave, resilient girl. As the ceremony began, I found myself reflecting on our journey. The pain, the betrayal, the uncertainty. It had all led us here, to this moment of triumph and new beginnings. When Ellen's name was called, I cheered louder than anyone. Our eyes met as she crossed the stage, and in that moment, I knew we'd be okay. After the ceremony, we were swept up in a whirlwind of photos and congratulations. Paul approached cautiously, Marion hovering in the background. Congratulations, Ellen, he said softly. I'm so proud of you. Ellen's smile was polite but distant. Thanks, Dad. An awkward silence fell. Finally, Paul cleared his throat. We're, heading to New York next week. I was hoping maybe we could have dinner before we go? Ellen glanced at me, then back at her father. I don't think that's a good idea. Maybe someday, but not now. Paul nodded, disappointment and understanding warring on his face. I understand. Take care of each other, okay? As he walked away, I pulled Ellen close. You okay? She took a deep breath. Yeah, I think I am. That night, as we celebrated with takeout and ice cream in our new apartment, Ellen turned to me with a serious expression. Mom, I want you to know something, she said. I don't regret choosing you. Not for a second. Tears pricked my eyes. Oh, sweetheart, I don't regret choosing you either. She smiled, a hint of mischief in her eyes. Good, because you're stuck with me now. We laughed, the sound filling our small living room. It wasn't perfect. There were still boxes to unpack, wounds to heal, a future to figure out. But we were together, and that was what mattered. As I tucked Ellen into bed that night, a ritual she claimed she was too old for but secretly loved, I felt a sense of peace wash over me. Mom? Ellen's voice was sleepy. Do you think we'll be okay? I smoothed her hair back, remembering all we'd been through. The betrayal, the heartache, the difficult choices, but also the love, the resilience, the unbreakable bond between us. Yeah, baby, I said softly. We're going to be more than okay. As I closed her door, I caught sight of myself in the hallway mirror. The woman staring back at me was different from the one who had discovered Paul's betrayal all those months ago. Stronger, wiser, ready to face whatever came next. I smiled at my reflection, feeling a sense of hope I hadn't experienced in years. Our story wasn't over. In many ways, it was just beginning. But whatever challenges lay ahead, I knew one thing for certain. Ellen and I would face them together. Mother and daughter against the world. And that was all we needed. The cursor blinked accusingly, each flash a reminder of the email I shouldn't have opened. My fingers hovered over the keyboard, paralyzed by the weight of what I'd just discovered. Tony, my husband of 10 years, was having an affair. Rebecca, you coming down for dinner? Tony's voice floated up the stairs, shattering my stunned silence. I swallowed hard, willing my voice to remain steady. Just a minute. Closing the laptop, I took a deep breath and made my way downstairs. The aroma of Tony's signature pasta dish filled the air, but my stomach churned with nausea. Tony stood at the stove, stirring a pot of sauce. He glanced up, flashing that charming smile that had once made my heart flutter. Now it made my skin crawl. There you are, he said. I was beginning to think you'd gotten lost in your work again. I forced a smile. Just wrapping up a few things. As I set the table, my mind raced. How long had this been going on? Who was she? The email had been vague, but the intimacy was unmistakable. So how was your day? Tony asked, ladling sauce over perfectly al dente penne. I stared at the plate before me, the red sauce suddenly reminding me of the anger bubbling just beneath my surface. Fine, I managed. Yours? Oh, same old academic grind, he chuckled. Sometimes I wonder if these students even appreciate the caliber of education they're receiving. I bit my tongue, resisting the urge to remind him that not everyone had the privilege of an Ivy League education. It was an old argument, one that always left me feeling small and inadequate. Speaking of which, Tony continued, oblivious to my inner turmoil, Mother called today. She's insisting we attend the university's fundraising gala next month. I suppressed a groan. Martha, my mother-in-law, was a force to be reckoned with. Do we have to? Tony's eyes narrowed. Rebecca, you know how important these events are. It's not just about the university. It's about maintaining our standing in the community. Our standing. As if I had any part in it beyond being Tony's arm candy at stuffy academic functions. Of course, I said, pushing the pasta around my plate. I'll make sure to clear my schedule. Tony nodded, satisfied. Good. Oh, and Mother mentioned she'd like to have lunch with you next week. Something about helping you select an appropriate gown for the gala. I gripped my fork tighter, imagining Martha's thinly veiled criticisms of my fashion choices. How thoughtful of her. Now, Rebecca, Tony said, his tone patronizing, I know you and Mother don't always see eye to eye, but she means well. Try to appreciate her guidance. I couldn't take it anymore. The lies, the condescension, the suffocating expectations. Tony, I need to ask you something. He looked up, a fork full of pasta halfway to his mouth. Yes? Who's Melanie? The color drained from Tony's face. He set his fork down slowly. I'm not sure what you mean. Don't lie to me, I said, my voice trembling. I saw the email, Tony. I know about the affair. For a moment, silence hung heavy between us. Then Tony's expression hardened. You went through my emails? That's a violation of my privacy, Rebecca. I laughed bitterly. Your privacy? What about our marriage vows? You're being hysterical, Tony said, standing up. This is exactly why I can't discuss certain aspects of my life with you. You're too emotional, too quick to jump to conclusions. Conclusions, I sputtered. Tony, I read the email. It was clear as day. He shook his head, looking at me with a mixture of pity and disdain. Rebecca, darling, you're misinterpreting things. This is why I've always said your lack of higher education leaves you at a disadvantage. You don't have the critical thinking skills to... The sound of my hand connecting with his cheek echoed through the kitchen. Tony stumbled back, shock written across his face. How dare you? I hissed. How dare you try to gaslight me and insult my intelligence in the same breath? As Tony opened his mouth to respond, my phone buzzed. A text from my father. Hey, sweetie, just checking in. Everything okay? I grabbed my phone and car keys. I'm leaving, I announced. Don't wait up. As I slammed the front door behind me, I realized my hands were shaking. What had I just done? Where would I go? For the first time in years, I felt truly alone. I spent the night at a nearby hotel, tossing and turning as my mind replayed every moment of my confrontation with Tony. By morning, I was exhausted but resolute. I needed answers, and I wasn't leaving our house until I got them. As I pulled into the driveway, I noticed Tony's car was still there. Good. No running away this time. I found him in the kitchen, nursing a cup of coffee. He looked up as I entered, his eyes bloodshot and weary. "Rebecca," he said, his voice hoarse. "I was worried sick. Where were you?" "Don't pretend you care," I snapped. "We need to talk about Melanie." Tony's jaw clenched. "I told you, you're misinterpreting things." "Then explain it to me, Tony. Help me understand how I'm misinterpreting an email where you tell another woman you can't wait to hold her in your arms again." He sighed, pinching the bridge of his nose. "It's not what you think. She's a colleague. We're working on a sensitive case together." I laughed bitterly. "A case that requires declarations of love?" "It's complicated, Rebecca. There are aspects of my work that you wouldn't understand." "Try me," I challenged. Tony stood up, towering over me. "This is exactly why I can't discuss these things with you. You lack the educational background to grasp the nuances of legal strategy." His words stung, but I refused to back down. "Don't you dare use my education as an excuse for your infidelity. I may not have an Ivy League degree, but I'm not stupid, Tony." "I never said you were stupid," he retorted. "But there's a reason I'm the one working at a prestigious law firm while you play around at your little tech startup." Rage boiled inside me. Play around? I'm the director of operations at a company that's revolutionizing green energy. Just because it's not some centuries-old boys' club doesn't make it any less valuable." Tony scoffed. "Please, we both know your father pulled strings to get you that job." "How dare you?" I hissed. "I earned my position through hard work and talent, unlike you, who rode Daddy's coattails straight into the family firm." His eyes flashed dangerously. "Watch your mouth, Rebecca. You have no idea what you're talking about." "Oh, I think I do," I shot back. "I think I'm finally seeing you clearly for the first time in our marriage. You're nothing but a narcissistic, cheating bastard who—" The sharp ring of the doorbell cut through our argument. We both froze, staring at each other. "Who could that be?" I asked. Tony's face paled. I'm not sure." I moved towards the door, but Tony grabbed my arm. "Wait, Rebecca. Let me get it." His sudden nervousness set off alarm bells in my head. I yanked my arm free and strode to the front door, throwing it open. A statuesque blonde stood on our porch, her perfect makeup unable to hide her surprise at seeing me. "Oh," she said, her voice soft and cultured. "I'm sorry, I must have the wrong house. I'm looking for Tony Green." My stomach dropped. "You've got the right house," I said coldly. "And you are?" She blinked, confusion evident on her face. "I'm Melanie Cartwright. Tony and I work together at the firm. And you are?" "I'm Rebecca," I replied, my voice steady despite the turmoil inside. "Tony's wife." Melanie's eyes widened in shock. "Wife? But Tony said he told me he was divorced." The world seemed to tilt on its axis. I gripped the doorframe for support, turning to face Tony, who stood frozen in the hallway. "You told her we were divorced?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. Tony's face was ashen. "Rebecca, I can explain." But I'd heard enough. I turned back to Melanie, whose perfect composure had crumbled into distress. "I think you'd better come in," I said. "It seems we have a lot to discuss." As Melanie stepped inside, I caught a glimpse of our neighbor across the street, watching the scene unfold with undisguised interest. In that moment, I realized our carefully constructed life was about to come crashing down around us. And for the first time, I wasn't sure if I wanted to stop it. The aftermath of Melanie's visit left our house feeling like a war zone. Tony had retreated to his study, leaving me to deal with the emotional wreckage. I was just about to call my father when the doorbell rang again. This time it was Martha, Tony's mother, her face pinched with concern. "Rebecca, dear," she said, brushing past me into the foyer. "I just ran into Diane across the street. She said there was quite a scene here earlier. What on earth is going on?" I sighed, closing the door. "Martha, now's not really a good time." She waved her hand dismissively. "Nonsense. Where's Anthony? I need to speak with him immediately." Before I could stop her, Martha marched towards Tony's study. I followed, my stomach knotting with dread. Tony looked up as we entered, his face a mask of guilt and fear. "Mother, what are you doing here?" Martha's eyes darted between us. "I came to find out what all this fuss is about. Anthony, explain yourself." Tony shot me a pleading look, but I crossed my arms, refusing to bail him out. He swallowed hard. "Mother, there's been a Misunderstanding. Misunderstanding? I scoffed. Is that what we're calling it now? Martha's eyes narrowed. Rebecca, please, let Anthony speak. I bit my tongue, seething as Tony spun a web of half-truths and outright lies. He painted Melanie as a confused colleague, me as an overreacting, jealous wife. With each word, I felt my anger rising. That's not what happened, I interjected. Tony's been having an affair. He told Melanie we were divorced, Martha gasped, turning to Tony. Anthony, is this true? Tony's face hardened. Of course not, Mother. Rebecca's letting her imagination run wild again. You know how she gets. How I get? I sputtered. You lying, manipulative. That's quite enough, Martha cut in. She turned to me, her voice ice cold. Rebecca, I think you need to calm down and stop making these wild accusations. Anthony is a respected member of this community. He would never engage in such behavior. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Are you serious? You're just going to take his word for it? Martha drew herself up to her full height. I know my son, Rebecca. Perhaps if you'd put as much effort into your marriage as you do into your little career, we wouldn't be having this conversation. The room fell silent. I stared at Martha, then at Tony, who couldn't even meet my eyes. In that moment, something inside me snapped. Get out, I said, my voice low and dangerous. Martha blinked. Excuse me? I said, get out. Both of you. This is my house, too, and I want you out. Tony stood up. Rebecca, you're being hysterical. Let's all calm down and... No, I cut him off. I'm done calming down. I'm done being gaslighted and belittled. Get out of my house now. Martha looked to Tony, clearly expecting him to put me in my place. But something in my expression must have warned him off because he simply nodded. Come on, Mother, he said softly. Let's give Rebecca some space. As they left, I sank onto the couch, my whole body shaking. The house felt suddenly empty, echoing with the ghosts of all the lies and betrayals that had filled it. My phone buzzed. A text from my father. On my way, sweetie. Hang in there. Tears welled up in my eyes. For the first time in days, I felt a glimmer of hope. I wasn't alone in this fight. As I waited for my father to arrive, I began to plan. This wasn't just about saving my marriage anymore. It was about saving myself. And I was done playing by Tony's rules. I picked up my laptop, determination stealing my resolve. It was time to dig deeper into Tony's life, his work, his secrets. If he wanted a war, I'd give him one. And this time, I wasn't going to lose. My father's steady presence had been a balm to my frayed nerves, but as he prepared to leave after a week-long visit, anxiety gnawed at my insides. I'd been avoiding Tony, throwing myself into work and my clandestine investigation of his affairs, both personal and professional. You sure you'll be all right, Becky? Dad asked, his weathered hands gripping his suitcase. I forced a smile. I'll be fine, Dad. Thanks for everything. As I watched his car disappear down the street, I steeled myself for what I needed to do next. I'd stumbled upon some troubling discrepancies in Tony's firm's financial records, and I couldn't ignore them any longer. Back in my home office, I pored over the documents I'd managed to access. Numbers swam before my eyes, but a pattern was emerging, one that made my blood run cold. It wasn't just an affair. Tony had been embezzling funds from the firm. My hands shook as I picked up my phone. I had to be sure. Melanie? It's Rebecca. We need to talk. An hour later, I sat across from Melanie in a quiet cafe, watching her face crumple as I laid out my suspicions. I had no idea, she whispered, her perfectly manicured nails tapping nervously on the table. I mean, I knew something was off with some of the accounts, but Tony always had an explanation. He's good at that, I said bitterly. Explanations, excuses, lies. Melanie's eyes met mine, filled with a mixture of guilt and determination. What can I do to help? Together, we pieced together the extent of Tony's deception. By the time we parted ways, I felt simultaneously vindicated and devastated. The man I'd married was a fraud in every sense of the word. Back home, I sat in the darkening living room, my mind racing. What was my next move? Confront Tony? Go to the authorities? My finger hovered over my father's number in my phone when I heard the front door open. Rebecca? Tony's voice called out. Are you home? I took a deep breath, squaring my shoulders. In here. Tony appeared in the doorway, his tie loosened, a forced smile on his face. Hey, I thought we could order in tonight, maybe talk things over? Sure, I said, keeping my voice neutral. We definitely need to talk. As Tony busied himself with menus, I watched him, seeing him clearly for the first time in years. The charm, the confidence, it was all a carefully constructed facade. "So," Tony said, settling into his armchair. "I know things have been tense lately, but I really think we can work this out. Maybe take a vacation, just the two of us." I almost laughed at the absurdity of it. "A vacation won't fix this, Tony." His smile faltered. "What do you mean?" "I know about the embezzlement," I said quietly. The color drained from Tony's face. For a moment he looked like he might deny it, but then his shoulders sagged. "How did you find out?" he asked, his voice barely above a whisper. "Does it matter?" I countered. "What matters is what happens next." Tony leaned forward, his eyes suddenly sharp. "Rebecca, think carefully about what you're doing. If this gets out, it won't just be me who suffers. Your reputation, your career, they'll be tainted too." I felt a chill run down my spine at the thinly veiled threat. "Are you trying to blackmail me, Tony?" He spread his hands in a placating gesture. "I'm just pointing out the reality of the situation. We're in this together, whether you like it or not." As I stared at the stranger sitting across from me, I realized I was at a crossroads. I could give in to fear, become complicit in Tony's crimes to save my own skin. Or I could stand up for what was right. Consequences be damned. My phone buzzed, a text from Melanie. "I've gathered more evidence. What's our next step?" In that moment I made my decision. I stood up, my voice steady as I addressed my husband. "No, Tony, we're not in this together, not anymore." As I walked out of the room, leaving Tony sputtering behind me, I felt a weight lift from my shoulders. The road ahead would be difficult, but for the first time in years, I was choosing my own path, and I was ready to face whatever came next. The morning after my confrontation with Tony, I woke to an empty house and a sense of foreboding. My phone buzzed incessantly with messages from Martha, each more accusatory than the last. I ignored them, focusing instead on my plan to expose Tony's misdeeds. As I sipped my coffee, a sharp knock at the door startled me. I opened it to find two stern-faced men in suits. "Mrs. Green? I'm Detective Simmons. This is Detective Ramos. We'd like to ask you a few questions about your husband's financial activities." My heart raced as I let them in. "Of course, but I'm not sure how much help I can be." Detective Simmons fixed me with a penetrating stare. "Mrs. Green, we have reason to believe you may have been involved in your husband's embezzlement scheme." The room spun. "What? No, that's impossible. I had no idea until recently." "We have evidence of large transfers from the firm's accounts to a joint account in both your names," Detective Ramos interjected. "Can you explain that?" I felt the blood drain from my face. Tony had set me up. He'd made me an unwitting accomplice. I need to call my lawyer," I stammered. The detectives exchanged glances. "We'll be in touch, Mrs. Green. Don't leave town." As soon as they left, I collapsed onto the couch, my mind reeling. How could I have been so naive? I'd underestimated Tony's capacity for manipulation. My phone rang. It was Melanie. "Rebecca? I just got questioned by the police. What's going on?" I filled her in, my voice shaking. "Tony's trying to frame me, Melanie. He's always been 10 steps ahead." "Not this time," Melanie said firmly. "I've been doing some digging of my own. Meet me at the cafe in an hour. There's something you need to see." An hour later, I sat across from Melanie, staring at the documents she'd spread before me. Bank statements, emails, memos, all pointing to a conspiracy far larger than I'd imagined. "It's not just Tony," Melanie explained. "Half the partners are involved. They've been siphoning funds for years, using offshore accounts and shell companies." I felt sick. "Why are you showing me this?" Melanie's eyes met mine. "Because you're the only one I trust to do the right thing. We can bring them all down, Rebecca, but it's going to be dangerous." As if on cue, my phone buzzed with a text from Tony. "Come home, we need to talk." I showed Melanie the message. She gripped my hand. "Be careful, he's desperate now." I nodded, gathering the documents. "I will. Thank you, Melanie, for everything." The drive home felt like a march to the gallows. I found Tony in his study, a tumbler of whiskey in his hand despite the early hour. "I assume you've spoken to the police," he said, his voice eerily calm. I nodded, my hand clutching my bag with Melanie's documents. "Why, Tony? Why did you do it?" He laughed bitterly. "You wouldn't understand. The pressure, the expectations, I had to keep up appearances. By stealing, by framing me." I felt my anger rising. Tony stood, swaying slightly. It wasn't supposed to go this far, but I can fix this, Rebecca. We can fix this, together. He moved towards me, his eyes pleading. Just tell the police you were involved. Take some of the blame. With your clean record, you'll get a slap on the wrist. I'll make sure of it. I stared at him, horrified. You want me to confess to crimes I didn't commit? It's the only way, Tony insisted. Otherwise, we'll both go down. Is that what you want? For a moment, I wavered. The thought of prison, of scandal, of losing everything I'd worked for, it was terrifying. But then I thought of my father, of Melanie, of all the people who believed in me. I straightened my spine, meeting Tony's gaze. No, Tony, I won't do it. In fact, I'm going to tell the police everything I know about you, about the partners, all of it. Tony's face contorted with rage. He lunged forward, grabbing my arm. You can't do that. I won't let you ruin everything. As I struggled to break free, my bag fell, spilling Melanie's documents across the floor. Tony's eyes widened as he saw the incriminating evidence. In that moment, I knew there was no turning back. I had to make a choice, protect myself and the truth, or give in to Tony's manipulation one last time. Taking a deep breath, I made my decision. I clutched the documents to my chest, my heart pounding as I raced out of the house. Tony's enraged shouts faded behind me as I jumped into my car and sped away. My mind was a whirlwind of fear and determination. I knew what I had to do, but the weight of it all threatened to crush me. My phone rang. It was my father. Becky, are you all right? I've been trying to reach you. Dad, I choked out, fighting back tears. I need your help. Can you meet me at my office? I'm on my way, he said without hesitation. I arrived at the tech startup where I worked, grateful for the weekend quiet. As I waited for my father, I paced the empty office, my thoughts racing. How had my life come to this? When Dad arrived, his worried expression deepened as I poured out the whole sordid story. Tony's affair, the embezzlement, the police investigation, and now his attempt to frame me. Oh, sweetheart, Dad said, pulling me into a hug. I'm so sorry you're going through this, but I'm proud of you for standing up for what's right. His words gave me strength. Thanks, Dad, but I don't know what to do next. If I go to the police, Tony might find a way to twist it against me. Dad's eyes lit up with an idea. What about your company's legal team? They're not connected to Tony's firm, and they have a vested interest in protecting you and the company. It was like a light bulb went off. Dad, you're a genius. I immediately called Sarah, our lead counsel. Despite it being a Saturday, she agreed to meet us at the office within the hour. As we waited, I organized the evidence, my hands shaking slightly. What if this backfires, Dad? What if I lose everything? He squeezed my shoulder. You won't lose everything, Becky. You'll always have me, and you'll have your integrity. That's worth more than any job or reputation. Sarah arrived looking concerned. Rebecca, what's going on? Your message sounded urgent. I took a deep breath and launched into my explanation, laying out the documents as I spoke. Sarah's expression grew increasingly grave. This is extensive, she said, poring over the evidence. And you're sure you had no knowledge of this before? I nodded emphatically. None. I only discovered it recently, and when I confronted Tony, he tried to manipulate me into taking the fall. Sarah's jaw tightened. We need to act fast. I'm going to call in the rest of the team and our outside counsel. Rebecca, we're going to protect you and the company, but you need to be prepared. This is going to get messy. As Sarah made calls, I felt a mix of relief and terror. There was no going back now. The next few hours were a blur of legal jargon and strategy sessions. By Sunday evening, we had a plan in place. I would give a full statement to the authorities with our legal team present to ensure I was protected. Just as we were wrapping up, my phone exploded with notifications. My blood ran cold as I saw the breaking news headline, Prominent Law Firm Under Investigation for Massive Fraud Scheme. Tony's face stared back at me from the screen, his usual smug smile replaced by a look of panic as he was led away in handcuffs. It started, Sarah said grimly. Rebecca, are you ready for this? Once we make your statement, there's no turning back. Your life will never be the same. I looked at my father, who nodded encouragingly, then back at Sarah and the team of lawyers ready to fight for me. In that moment, I felt a surge of strength I didn't know I possessed. I'm ready, I said, my voice steady. Let's end this. As we prepared to leave for the police station, I took one last look around my office. Whatever happened next, I knew I was fighting for my future, my integrity, and the truth. And for the first time in years, I felt truly free. The police station buzzed with activity as I sat in the interrogation room, my father and Sarah flanking me protectively. I just finished giving my statement, laying bare every detail of Tony's deception and the firm's widespread corruption. The weight of my words hung heavy in the air. Detective Simmons leaned back, his expression a mix of surprise and respect. "Mrs. Green, I have to say, this is one of the most comprehensive whistleblower statements I've ever heard. You've given us a lot to work with." I nodded, exhausted but resolute. "I just want the truth to come out." As we prepared to leave, a commotion erupted in the hallway. Angry shouts echoed, growing louder by the second. Suddenly, the door burst open, and there stood Tony, his face contorted with rage, flanked by 2 officers struggling to restrain him. "You backstabbing bitch!" he snarled, lunging towards me. The officers held him back as my father stepped protectively in front of me. "How could you do this to me? To us?" I stood my ground, meeting his gaze steadily. "I didn't do this to us, Tony. You did. With every lie, every betrayal, every time you made me feel small. It ends now." Tony's eyes darted wildly around the room, desperation etched on his face. "Rebecca, please, we can still fix this. I'll do anything. Just tell them you made a mistake, that you misunderstood." "No, Tony." I cut him off, my voice firm. "No more lies, no more manipulation. I want a divorce." The words hung in the air between us, final and irrevocable. Tony's face crumpled, the fight draining out of him. As the officers led him away, I caught a glimpse of Martha in the hallway, her face pale with shock. "Rebecca," she called out, her voice trembling. "What have you done? You've destroyed our family." I turned to her, feeling a mix of pity and frustration. "Martha, your son destroyed this family long before I exposed the truth. I'm sorry, but I won't be your scapegoat anymore." As we left the station, a swarm of reporters descended upon us. Camera flashes blinded me as questions were shouted from all directions. Sarah stepped in, her voice calm but firm. "My client has no comment at this time. We ask that you respect her privacy during this difficult period." We pushed through the crowd to my father's waiting car. As we drove away, I watched the chaos recede in the rearview mirror, feeling both liberated and overwhelmed. "You did good, Becky," my father said softly, squeezing my hand. "I'm so proud of you." Tears welled up in my eyes. "Thanks, Dad. I can't believe it's all really happening." Sarah's phone buzzed incessantly. She glanced at it, her eyes widening. "Rebecca, the story's breaking on all major news outlets. Tony's firm is in freefall, the partners are turning on each other, and there are rumors of a federal investigation." I closed my eyes, taking a deep breath. The magnitude of what I'd set in motion was staggering. "What happens now?" "Now," Sarah said, her tone serious, "we prepare for the fallout. There will be depositions, possibly a trial. Your life will be under a microscope. Are you ready for that?" The weight of her words settled on my shoulders. Was I ready? Could anyone truly be ready for something like this? As if sensing my doubt, my father spoke up. "You're stronger than you know, Becky. You've already faced the hardest part. Whatever comes next, you won't face it alone." I nodded, drawing strength from his words. As we pulled up to my house, the house I'd shared with Tony, I steeled myself for what lay ahead. The path forward was uncertain, fraught with challenges I couldn't yet imagine. But for the first time in years, I felt truly in control of my own destiny. Taking a deep breath, I stepped out of the car and towards my future, ready to face whatever came next. The storm was far from over, but I was no longer afraid of the rain. The courtroom fell silent as the judge entered. My heart pounded as I sat beside Sarah, our eyes fixed on Tony across the aisle. He looked haggard, a shadow of the confident man I'd married. As the verdict was read, a wave of emotions washed over me. In the matter of embezzlement and fraud, we find the defendant, Anthony Green, guilty on all counts. A collective gasp rippled through the courtroom. I closed my eyes, relief and sadness warring within me. It was over. Finally, truly over. As Tony was led away in handcuffs, his eyes met mine one last time. I saw a flicker of the man I'd once loved, buried beneath layers of deceit and arrogance. But it was too late for redemption. Outside the courthouse, reporters swarmed us. Sarah fielded their questions while I stood silently, overwhelmed by the finality of it all. "Rebecca?" A familiar voice cut through the chaos. I turned to see Melanie pushing through the crowd. She enveloped me in a tight hug. "You did it. You actually did it." I hugged her back, tears threatening to spill. "We did it. I couldn't have done this without you." As we pulled apart, I noticed Martha standing at the edge of the crowd, looking lost and defeated. Our eyes met, and for a moment, I saw a flicker of understanding pass between us. We'd both been victims of Tony's manipulation, in our own ways. The weeks that followed were a whirlwind. Tony's firm collapsed under the weight of the scandal, taking down several other high-profile lawyers with it. Martha, stripped of her social status and financial security, retreated from public life. I threw myself into my work, finding solace in the challenges of my tech startup. My colleagues rallied around me, their support unwavering in the face of the media frenzy. One evening, as I was leaving the office, I ran into Jim, my father, waiting by my car. "Thought you could use some company," he said with a warm smile. We ended up at a small diner, sharing a plate of fries like we used to when I was young. "How are you really doing, Becky?" he asked, his eyes full of concern. I sighed, stirring my coffee absently. "Honestly, I'm not sure. Some days I feel strong, like I can take on the world. Other days, I wonder if I'll ever trust anyone again." Dad reached across the table, squeezing my hand. "You will. It'll take time, but you will. You're the strongest person I know, Rebecca. You stood up for what's right, even when it cost you everything." His words struck a chord. "Not everything," I said softly. "I still have you. I still have my integrity." As we left the diner, a young woman approached us hesitantly. "Excuse me, are you Rebecca Matthews?" I nodded, bracing myself for another reporter's questions. Instead, she smiled shyly. "I just wanted to say thank you. Your story, it gave me the courage to leave my own abusive relationship. You showed me that it's never too late to stand up for yourself. I was stunned. I thank you for telling me that. Stay strong." As she walked away, I felt a shift inside me. For the first time since this ordeal began, I felt a sense of purpose beyond my own survival. In the months that followed, I started speaking at women's shelters and support groups, sharing my story and offering hope to others trapped in toxic relationships. It wasn't easy, reliving the pain and betrayal, but every time I saw a spark of recognition or determination in someone's eyes, I knew it was worth it. 1 year to the day after Tony's conviction, I stood before a packed auditorium, preparing to give a keynote speech at a conference for survivors of domestic abuse and financial fraud. As I looked out at the sea of faces, women of all ages, each with their own story of resilience, I felt a surge of strength and clarity. "My name is Rebecca Matthews," I began, my voice steady and clear, "and this is my story of reclaiming my life from the ruins of betrayal and finding strength I never knew I had." As I spoke, I realized that this moment of connection, of shared strength and hope, was the true resolution of my journey. I had not only survived, I had found a way to thrive and to help others do the same. The applause that followed my speech washed over me like a cleansing wave. I stood tall, no longer defined by my past, but by the woman I had become, strong, resilient, and finally truly free.